Chapter 249. After Yang Yong finished speaking, he looked at Wang Shui and Wang Daoyuan. His meaning was very clear. He wanted the Wang family to take the lead and make a statement. Wang Daoyuan and Wang Shui pretended not to see. Only idiots would agree to a duel with the cruel Sun Palace. Once the Wang family appeared, the cruel Sun Palace people's eyes turned red. Casualties were unavoidable. Although the Wang family needed the rank 3 pill talisman inheritance, it wasn't important enough to exchange their lives for it. Yang Yong glanced at Meng Chongfeng. Although Meng Chongfeng didn't have foresight, he still had self-awareness. He was only at the 3rd level of foundation establishment, and the Meng family's inheritance was also very ordinary. Meng Chongfeng wasn't outstanding among cultivators of the same level. Dueling with the cruel Sun Palace cultivators of the same level was suicide. He could only pretend not to see. The other families naturally didn't want to get involved. How could the inheritance of the 3 sects be compared to ordinary people? If a family cultivator went up, the probability of winning was very low, not to mention winning 5 rounds in a row. So if they went to fight, they would be cannon fodder. Who would be so free as to send themselves to death? Yang Yong couldn't continue speaking. He said unhappily, "Everyone go back and discuss. Rank 3 inheritances aren't easy to get, but foundation establishment pills aren't difficult." After the birthday banquet, everyone dispersed. Wang Daoyuan called Yun Yi and left Giant Wood Peak with his parents and 12th uncle. After sending his parents back to Clear Creek Village, the two returned to Jade Spring Peak. Wang Shui pulled Wang Daoyuan into the ancestral shrine and asked, "Daoyuan, how could you bear to give the inky jade lotus as a gift? The Netherworld sect is in a hurry to find the source of Yin energy. Aren't you asking for trouble? Also, the inky jade lotus didn't come from Mirror Treasure Lake, right? Many years ago you asked 4th brother and 7th brother to identify a lotus leaf. That leaf was the inky jade lotus." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "I still have lotus seeds. Naturally, I've thought about it carefully before giving them as a gift. The Netherworld sect doesn't have a source of Yin energy, so they can maintain restraint for a short time. But if they don't recover for a few years, their Yin energy reserves will be depleted. The higher-ups might do something risky. To our Wang family, the more stable the Zhao country is, the better. Once the Underworld sect is in despair and starts a war with the cruel Sun Palace, or simply kills people to refine their souls to obtain Yin Qi, our Wang family will also be implicated. This was to give them some hope so that they would not take the risk. As for the Black Jade Serene Lotus, it was indeed not from the Treasure Mirror Lake. I still have some lotus seeds here. 5th granduncle, you can try to establish your Violet Palace. Even if you fail and damage your soul, I can guarantee that you will recover quickly." Wang Shui sighed and said, "What you said makes sense. Since it's yours, I don't care anymore." After saying that, he left the ancestral shrine. Wang Daoyuan had sent the lotus seeds not only to stabilize the Netherworld sect, but also to borrow the Netherworld sect's hands to deal with Qinji. The secret realm where the 10,000 Corpses' spiritual master had passed away was in the vicinity of the Jewel Mirror Lake. Therefore Wang Daoyuan was not lying. There was indeed a source of Yin Qi there. The Yin Qi secret realm was of no use to him. Now that he had the Gui Water Nether Flame, as long as there was water attribute spiritual energy or spiritual items, the Gui Water Nether Flame could continuously produce Yin Qi and spring water with spiritual energy. Spiritual fire was equivalent to a miniature spirit vein, and a relatively high-grade one. The amount of spiritual energy produced was small, but the concentration was high. The concentration of pure Yin Qi and water attribute spiritual energy produced by the Gui Water Nether Flame was comparable to a high-grade 3rd-grade spirit vein. But without the support of the Gui Water Nether Spring, the total amount of Yin Qi produced was only enough to nurture a dozen Black Jade Serene Lotuses. This pure Yin Qi was enough for Wang Daoyuan. The secret realm where the 10,000 Corpses' spiritual master had passed away was more suitable for evil cultivators. It was useless for the Wang family to obtain it. And if Qinji was not dealt with, he would always be an unstable factor. From Qi Yun's memories, he knew that Qinji had the insights left behind by the 10,000 Corpses' spiritual master, which included the process of the 10,000 Corpses' spiritual master improving the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. With these insights, he might be able to perfect the doppelganger soul nurturing technique in the future. The complete version of the doppelganger soul nurturing technique was also useful for the soul of Zifu realm cultivators. It was much stronger than the black jade serene lotus. Moreover, the 10,000 corpses spiritual master came from another cultivation world. His insights might have recorded the route to Beiyuan Zhou Xian. Beiyuan Zhou Xian was no longer enough to support cultivators to break through Yuanying. If they wanted to pursue a higher realm, they had to go out. If they wanted to get the insights left by the 10,000 corpses spiritual master, they had to kill Qinji. And Qinji had many refined corpses. To raise corpses he needed a lot of yin qi. Therefore Qinji definitely put a lot of refined corpses in the secret realm. Once the people of the Netherworld sect found the vicinity of the secret realm, they would definitely have a conflict with Qinji. Qinji was cunning and had a lot of refined corpses with him. He would not be easily killed. With his ability, it would be difficult to gain an advantage in the hands of the Netherworld sect. In this way his refined corpses would be lost and his strength would be weakened. If he went to find trouble with him in the future, his chances of winning would be much higher. If the Netherworld sect was lucky and could find the entrance to the secret realm, their strength would increase. The Wang clan was now a subordinate force of the Netherworld sect. The Netherworld sect was stronger, so the Wanyang Palace and the Myriad Spirit sect did not dare to act rashly. The Zhao clan would also delay their action, and the situation would be stable for a longer time. Stability was the most important thing for the Wang clan. Using the Yin Qi secret realm that was useless to them as bait to stabilize the Netherworld sect and weaken Qinji, they would not lose out no matter how they looked at it. Wang Daoyuan also left the ancestral shrine and returned to his cave residence to continue cultivating. He had nothing to do in the short term. It was better to improve his cultivation as soon as possible and reach the late foundation establishment stage as soon as possible to take over Fallen Dragon Ridge. He wanted to cultivate peacefully and not cause trouble, but trouble came knocking on his door. More than 10 days after Yang Yang's birthday, a huge eagle-type demon beast came to Jade's Spring Peak. Not long after the giant eagle entered the Wang clan's territory, Wang Daoyuan received a report from Jin Yi. After a quarter of an hour, the giant eagle came to a place more than 10 miles away from Jade's Spring Peak. It did not fly above Jade's Spring Peak, but kept a distance of more than 10 miles from Jade's Spring Peak and circled around it. This was the etiquette of cultivators visiting a mountain. Without the permission of the master, one could not fly directly above the spiritual mountain by sword or flying demon beast. Wang Daoyuan walked out of his cave residence and shouted, "Which Dao Yu is visiting?" Hearing Wang Daoyuan's voice, Wang Shi also ended his closed-door cultivation and walked out of his cave residence. At this time a voice came from the back of the giant eagle. "Luo Hongming of the Netherworld sect is here to visit the mountain. He came uninvited. Please forgive Dao Yu of the Wang clan." Hearing this, Wang Shi replied, "Luo Dao, please come to the mountain for a chat." The giant eagle slowly landed. Wang Daoyuan only felt that this giant eagle's cultivation was unfathomable. It was at least a third-rank demon beast. A young cultivator came down from the giant eagle's back and cupped his hands towards Wang Shui and Wang Daoyuan. "Luo Hongming of the Netherworld sect greets Dao Yu." This person was in the late stage of foundation establishment. Wang Shui and Wang Daoyuan did not dare to be arrogant and hurriedly returned the greeting. Moreover, this person's surname was Luo. He was most likely a disciple of the master of the Netherworld sect. The two of them led Luo Hongming into the hall and took their seats. Wang Shui cupped his hands and said, "May I know what brings Dao Yu here?" Luo Hongming returned the greeting and said, "It's nothing important. My Netherworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace will have a duel in half a year. My granduncle asked me to come and ask about the Wang clan's attitude." Wang Daoyuan asked, "May I know which senior of the Netherworld sect your granduncle is?" Luo Hongming smiled and said, "My granduncle is the master of the Netherworld sect." Hearing this, the two of them changed their expressions. Wang Shui immediately said, "I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you." Chapter 250. Luo Hongming waved his hand. "There's no need to be so reserved. Granduncle only sent me to ask about the Wang clan's attitude, not to give an order." Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. "Young Master Luo, the people participating in this duel between the Underworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace will definitely be the elites of the two sections. My Wang clan is just a foundation establishment clan. How can we compete with the Cruel Sun Palace's direct disciples?" Luo Hongming smiled. "Dao Yu must be joking. If someone else says they can't compete with the Cruel Sun Palace, It's still reasonable. But if the Wang clan says they can't compete with the cruel Sun Palace, then they're being too modest. Back then the Wang clan ancestor killed the cruel Sun Palace's grand elder. It's not an exaggeration to say that the Wang clan's inheritance is the cruel Sun Palace's nemesis. Wang Shui continued, "Young Master Luo, you're too kind. The same cultivation method and spell can have completely different effects when used by different people. Although the art of overturned sea that the ancestor cultivated was also a golden core cultivation method, it was far inferior to the direct disciples of the three sections. Being able to kill enemies above his level was due to the ancestor's outstanding talent. Our descendants are incompetent. In terms of talent, they can't even compare to the ancestor. In terms of combat, the strongest in the Wang clan should be me and Daoyuan. Although I also cultivate the art of overturned sea, my combat ability is far inferior to the ancestors. Daoyuan doesn't cultivate the art of overturned sea, so his water dragon art is far inferior to mine. If the two of us can't kill enemies above our level, the other clansmen won't be able to do it either." Luo Hongming stopped smiling. Dao Yu may not be as strong as the Wang clan ancestor, but it's still easy for him to defeat the cruel Sun Palace's foundation establishment cultivators. To be honest, the cruel Sun Palace's direct disciples cultivation method is somewhat restrained by the cruel Sun Palace. For many years the cruel Sun Palace has suppressed the Netherworld sect. If the Wang clan ancestor hadn't killed 5 golden core cultivators of the cruel Sun Palace back then, I'm afraid the cruel Sun sect wouldn't be able to stay above the cruel Sun Palace. This time the cruel Sun Palace has many cultivators of the 3 attributes. Among the mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators, one is a Thundersword cultivator. He's extremely talented, reaching the 6th level of foundation establishment. The Netherworld sect's cultivation method was most afraid of thunder techniques, and there was no cultivator in the sect who could fight against it. The cultivators of the Wang clan had always been good at fighting, which was why they had come to ask the cultivators of the Wang clan to fight. He hoped that the Wang clan could produce an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator and a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Of course, the sect wouldn't let Wang Zhebai do it for free. As long as the Wang clan agreed to participate in the duel, the rewards for the Wang clan cultivators would be doubled. In addition, no matter how the Wang clan cultivators perform in battle, the Netherworld sect will help Wang Daolong reach the foundation establishment stage and allow him to become the disciple of a Violet Palace realm uncle of mine. There was no need for the Wang family to give me an answer now. 3 days later, Elder Yang would summon all the families to participate in the duel in Clear Glass City. The Wang family could just reply then. "I still have important matters to attend to, so it's not convenient for me to stay. Farewell." With that said, Luo Hongming stood up and left. The two of them sent him off until he was 30 miles away from the Jade Spring Peak. Wang Daolong was the leader of the Dao generation, Wang Daoyuan's eldest brother. He had joined the Underworld sect since he was young and he was exactly 70 years old. After seeing the guests off, the two of them went to the ancestral temple to discuss this matter. Wang Shui asked, "Daoyuan, you're very resourceful. Do you have any other plans?" Wang Daoyuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "12th uncle, even you don't have any ideas. What can I do?" The grandnephew of the Underworld sect's sect master brought a rank 3 demonic beast to visit. They doubled the rewards and helped Big Brother reach the foundation establishment stage. They even want Big Brother to become the disciple of a Violet Palace realm cultivator of the Luo clan. Our Wang clan will be a direct descendant of the Underworld sect in the future. Even the families established by Violet Palace realm elders don't have this kind of treatment. The courtesy has already reached the limit, and the toast has already been served to us. If we don't agree, then we'll be refusing a toast and the punishment will be served soon. Wang Shui sighed and said, "It's not up to us. The strongest in the early foundation establishment stage is Dao Xing. You, me, and Dao Chong are in the middle foundation establishment stage. Your cultivation is lower than mine, and you'll have to fight that lightning-attributed sword cultivator. Let me go." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "When I was at the 3rd level of foundation establishment, I defeated a 6th level foundation establishment sword cultivator. Before returning, I was blocked by a 7th level foundation establishment cultivator, a 3rd level foundation establishment cultivator, and a bone vulture that was about to break through to the high grade of the 2nd level. I killed the 3rd-level Foundation Establishment Cultivator, and severely injured the 7th-level Foundation Establishment Cultivator and the Bone Vulture. If it wasn't for the fact that the 7th-level Foundation Establishment Cultivator was still useful, both of them would have died. And I defeated them only using the Cloud Mist Escape and a technique I learned after going to the north of the mountain. 12th uncle, do you think you're a match for me? Wang Shui answered helplessly, if I met a 6th-level Foundation Establishment Cultivator I could win now. But at the 3rd-level Foundation Establishment stage, I definitely had no chance of survival. If I met a 7th-level Foundation Establishment Cultivator and a Bone Vulture that was about to break through to the high grade of the 2nd level, even if I used all my strength I'd have to pay a heavy price to win. In terms of fighting I'm indeed inferior to you. Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, since you've agreed then you can go and declare your position 3 days later. I'll go to the sky/mountain range to continue harming demon beasts. Half a year's time is enough for me to refine a few techniques. If I don't want to expose all my trump cards, I'll have to go and hone my skills. After saying this he left the Jade Spring Peak on his sword and flew towards the east. The Netherworld sect master had personally sent someone to invite him to participate in this duel. Regardless of the results, his big brother Wang Daolong would be able to enter the Foundation Establishment stage and become a disciple of the Luo clan. But if the Wang clan's results were too poor, it would be hard to avoid being punished afterwards. If they participated in the duel, they would have to win at least 5 matches in a row to avoid being punished. There wasn't much hope in counting on Wang Daoxing. Although Wang Daoxing was a body refiner, his fighting strength was very strong. But the Cruel Sun sect was famous for body refinement and had a mature inheritance system. It was much stronger than his lustrous golden body art. If Wang Daoxing went out it would be good if he could win 1 or 2 matches. If he wanted to win 5 matches in a row he would have to rely on himself. If necessary he would have to expose some of his trump cards. The trump cards that he absolutely couldn't expose were the Doppelganger Soul Nurturing Technique, Soul Extinguishing Bell, Earth Divine Lightning, and the special spiritual energy of the 5-Spirit Immortal Transformation Technique. If he had no other choice, the only trump card he could expose was the Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon Technique. Thus he could only use whip techniques, sword cultivation techniques, the Meteor Fall Technique and his family's techniques. With the combination of whip techniques and cloud escape, it was easy to bully a body refiner. But against a sword cultivator it was really useless. This whip technique was only created by the 5 Elements Taoist when he was at the Foundation Establishment stage. It was imitating a sword cultivator and pursued speed. Against a real sword cultivator speed had no advantage. Among the middle Foundation Establishment stage disciples of large sects, who didn't have powerful techniques, even if they used all 5 elements they wouldn't have any advantage. The Water Dragon technique was even worse. He didn't cultivate the art of overturning sea, so the Water Dragon technique's power wasn't enough. The main methods he used against the enemy were the Cloud Escape sword cultivation techniques and the Meteor Fall technique. As for the problem of his special spiritual energy, it was very easy to solve. For example, before using the Cloud Escape he could convert the Metal-type spiritual energy into Water-type spiritual energy without using the Water-type spiritual energy seed. There was nothing special about the Water-type spiritual energy that was converted this way. When using the Cloud Escape the clouds and mist would still be white. Before the battle he would suppress the spiritual energy seed and then convert all the spiritual energy in the 5 elements into their own attributes according to the order of the 5 elements. In this way, all the spiritual energy in his body would be ordinary spiritual energy and wouldn't have the characteristics of spiritual fire. Chapter 251. Wang Daoyuan knew that he wasn't suited to walk the path of a sword cultivator, and he didn't expect his sword cultivation to reach Li Qingxuan's level. The biggest advantage of a sword cultivator's spells was that they were fast, but the power didn't matter. In the next half a year he would strive to reach Li Qingxuan's level in casting spells and be able to use them freely. Although he could take down a normal 7th or 8th level Foundation Establishment cultivator, his opponent wasn't an ordinary opponent. The elite disciples of large sects were usually at least direct disciples of Zifu realm cultivators. The exceptional ones might even cultivate the inheritance of a Golden Core cultivator, or even be personally taught by a Golden Core cultivator. Furthermore, he was a lightning cultivator and a sword cultivator. If he had one of these 3 identities it wouldn't be easy to deal with him, but this kid had all 3. He had his trump cards, but the disciples of large sects didn't lack powerful spells either. The Wang clan only had one golden core cultivator, and they had the cloud mist escape and the water dragon technique. The Savage Sun Palace was a large sect with thousands of years of history. Every generation had around 10 golden core cultivators, so how could they not have their trump cards? The Savage Sun Palace definitely had plenty of escape techniques like the cloud mist escape. His cultivation was one level lower than Wang Daoyuan's, so even if he used his full strength, his chances of winning weren't high, not to mention that he had to hide part of his strength. When it came to the duel, he would try his best to win against those who weren't sword cultivators. It would be fine as long as he could endure 5 consecutive victories. If he encountered a lightning cultivator at the 6th level of Foundation establishment, he could just surrender and leave. After arriving at Linji Mountain, he found the Thunder Ape and asked it to lead the way to find some high-grade Tier 2 demonic beasts to practice with. He really didn't dare to provoke Fallen Dragon Ridge, which was a large group of demonic beasts. If he fought with a demonic beast, it would cause a huge commotion and he would be easily surrounded by the surrounding demonic beasts. The Thunder Ape had been causing trouble in Linji Mountain for more than 10 years, bullying the nearby demonic beasts all day long. Therefore, no one knew the standards of the surrounding demonic beasts better than the Thunder Ape. After explaining his request to the Thunder Ape brought him towards the southeast. The man and the ape walked for more than 1,000 miles and arrived at a forest. According to the Thunder Ape, there was a spirit fruit in the forest that he needed to brew wine. However, this forest was the territory of a high-grade Tier 2 demonic beast. So it wasn't confident of winning, so it didn't rashly look for trouble. The demonic beast in this forest was a level 2 upper-grade saber-toothed leopard. Leopard-type demonic beasts were not bad in terms of speed and agility. On the other hand, the saber-toothed leopard's innate spell was to use its 2 fangs to release sword chi to attack its enemies. Its attack range could reach up to 3,000 feet, which was comparable to the attack range of a Foundation Establishment cultivator's flying sword. Moreover, the saber-toothed leopard's attack speed was very fast. It was a great threat to Wang Daoyuan. It was an excellent opponent. Arriving in front of the forest, the Thunder Ape let out a long howl towards the sky. Soon, the roar of a leopard could be heard from the forest. In just 4 or 5 breaths of time, a black shadow rushed out of the forest. After the black shadow stopped, Wang Daoyuan was finally able to see what it looked like. In front of him was a pure black leopard. Its body was only a little more than 10 feet long, and it had a tail that was even longer than its body. The 2 fangs in his mouth were about a foot long, like 2 short swords. Furthermore, this saber-toothed leopard's cultivation level was slightly higher. It was already comparable to a human Foundation Establishment Level 9 cultivator. Even if it was an ordinary Foundation Establishment Level 9 cultivator, Wang Daoyuan would not have the confidence to win. This saber-toothed leopard's fighting strength was much stronger than ordinary Foundation Establishment Level 9 cultivators. Its only flaw was that it could not fly. Otherwise, Wang Daoyuan would not have dared to find trouble with it. The saber-toothed leopard stared at Wang Daoyuan and the Thunder Ape and let out a warning growl. It was also not confident that it could take down a human and an ape. It was best if they did not fight. Wang Daoyuan was here to train. If the saber-toothed leopard did not make a move, he would not be polite. He took out the golden edge sword and used the myriad sword art. In just 5 breaths of time, he used his sword chi to condense 50 to 60 long sword phantoms. Compared to Li Qingchuan, who only used 1 breath of time, the difference was still very big. Wang Daoyuan controlled a long sword phantoms and attacked the saber-toothed leopard. As a leopard-type demonic beast, the saber-toothed leopard was extremely agile. When the long sword phantoms attacked, it only needed to twist its body to easily avoid them. Wang Daoyuan would not let it continue to be relaxed. He continued to control the long sword phantoms and attacked it. The saber-toothed leopard's agility was far beyond Wang Daoyuan's expectations. It only needed to move its feet and jump a few times to avoid all the long sword phantoms. Seeing this, Wang Daoyuan was dumbfounded. He had to use the smoke escape to barely avoid the attack, but the saber-toothed leopard easily dodged it. After the saber-toothed leopard dodged all the long sword phantoms, there was a violent fluctuation of spirit energy from its fangs. In just half a breath of time, it released 4 sword chi. Wang Daoyuan immediately used the smoke escape to avoid the sword chi. The 4 sword chi hit the rock, leaving a 5 to 6 foot deep sword mark. Seeing this power, Wang Daoyuan was glad that he did not use the black tortoise sword shield. Otherwise he would have been seriously injured. Just as he stopped, another four-sword chi attacked him. He could only continue to use the smoke escape to escape. Seeing that the saber-toothed leopard was not paying attention to it, the thunder ape quietly entered the forest. After dodging more than 10 sword chi, the saber-toothed leopard saw that it could not hit him. It stopped releasing sword chi and turned to charge at him. Wang Daoyuan immediately used the water dragon technique and condensed a water dragon armor to protect his body. He also did not use any techniques to fight the saber-toothed leopard in close combat. The saber-toothed leopard's sword chi was very destructive and its body was very agile. However, its physical strength was not very strong. Its claws scratched Wang Daoyuan's body, but it could not break through the water dragon armor. It opened its mouth and bit at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to take those 1-foot-long fangs head-on. He used the golden edge sword to slash at its fangs. The sound of metal colliding rang out. The saber-toothed leopard's physical strength was not strong. It was swept away several feet by the sword. Its fangs took the golden edge sword head-on, but it was not damaged at all. The saber-toothed leopard charged again. It did not fight Wang Daoyuan head-on. Instead, it kept dodging the sword and waiting for an opportunity to sneak attack with its fangs. Wang Daoyuan's speed was not as fast as the saber-toothed leopard. When it deliberately dodged, Wang Daoyuan could not hit it at all. The saber-toothed leopard used its fangs to attack at close range. Speed was even faster than sword chi. Wang Daoyuan was not as agile as it and was bitten a few times. Even the water dragon armor was bitten through. If it was not for the protection of the turtle dragon armor, he would have been seriously injured. If he continued to fight in close combat, he would not be able to hold on for long. At this moment, the thunder ape rushed out of the forest with a pile of red fruits and roared at the saber-toothed leopard. The saber-toothed leopard was fighting Wang Daoyuan alone. It had dragged on for a long time. Now the thunder ape was here. It was not confident that it could win 1 against 2. It immediately shook off Wang Daoyuan and turned to escape into the forest. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to give chase. He was not a match for the saber-toothed leopard outside the forest. Now that he was in its territory, it would be easier for the saber-toothed leopard to hide. He was even less of a match for it. Since the thunder ape had succeeded, he did not return empty-handed. The man and the ape left the forest and returned to Linji Mountain. The red fruits that the thunder ape found were one of the ingredients for brewing wine. Wang Daoyuan naturally wanted to plant some. He used 2 caddies of scarlet blood wine to exchange for 5 fruits. The fruit was blood red and shaped like a heart. It was an upper-grade Tier 2 spirit fruit, dragon heart fruit. The purpose of this fruit was to strengthen the heart and blood. If the heart and blood were strong, the body would naturally not be weak. Therefore, the dragon heart fruit was loved by body-tempering cultivators. Since the thunder ape used the dragon heart fruit to brew wine, the spirit wine that it brewed should mainly be used to strengthen the body. Wang Daoyuan did not eat the 5 dragon heart fruits. Instead, he placed them in the space of the spirit pearl and handed them to his clone to handle. There were many seeds in the dragon heart fruits that could be used for planting. Even if it was not used for brewing wine, the dragon heart fruit had some effect on strengthening the body. It would be good to plant some. Chapter 252. In the following 5 months, Wang Daoyuan followed the thunder ape to the surrounding spirit veins to find high-grade second-rank demonic beasts to practice with. Wang Daoyuan held back the demonic beasts while the thunder ape took the opportunity to steal spirit fruits and spirit herbs. In these 5 months, Wang Daoyuan's spells had greatly improved. The golden rock seizing dragon technique only needed 6 or 7 breaths of time to cast. The golden rock's wingspan was more than 200 feet and it could condense 1,000 feather blades at once. The lethality of a feather blade was about 3 times that of a mid-grade second-rank golden saber talisman. If he cast all the feather blades at once, his spirit power would be completely exhausted. Perhaps because the spell was incomplete, the number of feather blades that could be condensed after reaching 1,000 was considered the limit. He cultivated for a long time and could only increase the power of 1 feather blade. He could not increase the number of feather blades. The speed of his sword cultivation spells also caught up with Li Qingchuan. The myriad sword art only needed 1 breath of time to cast. And he could only condense a long sword shadow at a time. It could be cast instantly and its power was about twice that of a mid-grade second-rank golden saber talisman. The sky-severing sword could be cast in 3 breaths of time. Its length was still about 250 feet. Its power did not increase significantly. It was just that his control was much stronger and he could command it like an extension of his arm. The meteor fall technique also reached the level of 3 in 2 breaths. Its power also did not increase by much. His goal was to rely on speed to defeat his opponent. If he did not use his trump card, it would be very difficult to compete with the disciples of the cruel Sun Pillar. There was still a month left before the duel. Those who participated in the duel first needed to go to Clearly Market to take the test. Those who did not pass would be eliminated and replaced by other people of the same clan. The Wang clan's participants were him and his second brother Wang Daoxing. Wang Daoxing had been guarding Linji Mountain. The two left Linji Mountain together and headed to Clearly Market. When they arrived at the headquarters of the Netherworld sect in Clearly Market, someone led them to a spacious courtyard. This courtyard seemed to be a place for cultivators to practice. The ground and walls were all made of hard rock. There were 3 cultivators wearing the black uniform of the Netherworld sect in the courtyard. The 3 of them held swords and stood in 3 different directions. At the entrance of the courtyard stood a dozen people. These people were all Foundation establishment cultivators wearing the uniforms of various clans. The Yang family and the Liang family had also sent people over. These people were all here to participate in the test. There was something wrong with this number. The Underworld sect had sent out 60 Foundation building cultivators in total. With the 4 counties split evenly, Qingli County only had 15 spots. The northern part of Qingli County should have 5 spots. Why did the northern part of Qingli County have more than 10 people? After waiting for a short while, Yang Yong arrived at the courtyard and announced, "Because we have to deal with the surviving members of the Zhao clan, the 3 great sects cannot expend too much strength." The original plan of 60 Zifu disciples from each side was changed to 9 Zifu disciples from each side. As compensation, the number of Foundation establishment cultivators participating in the duel would be doubled. Now it was time to test the strength of the participating Foundation establishment cultivators. These 3 were the elite disciples of the Underworld School. Their cultivations were respectively in the early stage, middle stage and late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. If the 10 of you can last 30 breaths against a disciple of the same cultivation level, you will pass. Wang Daoyuan thought to himself, since the elite disciples of the Netherworld sect are so strong, why don't they directly participate in the war? Instead they choose from the various families. It's obvious that they want to weaken the strength of the subordinate families. It wasn't easy for Zifu disciples to find scapegoats, which was why the number of participating Zifu disciples had been reduced. There were plenty of scapegoats among the Foundation establishment cultivators. Naturally, the number of scapegoats had to be increased. The Netherworld sect's methods of swindling their subordinate powers were truly gaudy. Perhaps the reason why the Netherworld sect was willing to spend so much to have their own families participate in the war was because they wanted their own cultivators to attract the enemy's firepower. None of the 10 or so Foundation establishment cultivators were willing to exchange blows with the elite disciples of the Netherworld sect. They all stood at the entrance to the courtyard, not daring to enter. The middle Foundation establishment elite disciple of the Netherworld sect pointed at Wang Daoyuan and said arrogantly, "That cultivator of the Wang clan came out to exchange blows. In order to invite your Wang clan to fight, senior apprentice brother Luo had to personally make a trip. I want to see what ability your Wang clan has." Wang Daoyuan walked directly into the courtyard, clasping his hands and saying, "Dare I ask this senior apprentice brother's esteemed name?" The middle Foundation establishment cultivator said disdainfully, "My surname is Jin. I am Elder Jin's great-grandson. As for my name, you don't have the qualifications to know it." Wang Daoyuan's face was full of smiles. Although he looked harmless, in his heart he was very happy. If this kid was from the local branch or the clan, he would have to show him mercy and give him some face. He didn't expect this kid to be from the foreign branch and the Jin clan. That year outside the Gold Geese City, Jin Yugue humiliated the Wang clan and the Li clan. The Wang clan didn't have the strength to take revenge. He didn't expect that now he would have a chance to take revenge. This kid surnamed Jin should prepare to lie down and go home. Wang Daoyuan took out the Jinfeng sword and walked forward. The cultivator surnamed Jin swung his sword, and a black sword light flew towards Wang Daoyuan. This sword light carried an evil aura. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't take it head-on. The spiritual power on his sword surged, forming a long sword shadow. The long sword shadow flew out and collided with the sword light. The sword light was directly cut in half, and the long sword shadow continued to slash towards the cultivator surnamed Jin. The cultivator surnamed Jin waved his sword and shattered the long sword shadow. He said disdainfully, "Still a sword cultivator. Unfortunately, your strength isn't much." Saying so, he threw the sword in his hand, which turned into a black viper and flew towards Wang Daoyuan. This sword is a bit similar to the Tiger Soul Fiend banner. Both of them use a magic tool to nurture a demon beast soul and borrow it to fight. However, his sword is more advanced. The demon beast soul and the magic tool are fused into one, the weapon and soul combined, greatly increasing its power. There's not enough time to use Meteor Fall. A single long sword shadow can't stop it. He can only use Cloud Mist Escape to avoid the viper's attack. The sword in his hand surged with spiritual power, forming dozens of long sword shadows in a single breath. The black viper missed, then turned around and continued to fly towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan controlled all the long sword shadows to attack the black viper. A breath later, the dozens of long swords and the black viper clashed. This viper's soul uses the sword as its body, so it's extremely strong. Even when it clashed with the long sword shadows, it didn't suffer any damage. After destroying all the long sword shadows, the viper's spiritual power was exhausted. It turned back into a long sword and returned to the hand of the cultivator surnamed Jin. Only 10 breaths of time have passed. It's not time to end yet. Wang Daoyuan poured a large amount of metal-type spiritual power into the long sword. 3 breaths later, a 25 long giant sword shadow suddenly appeared. Wang Daoyuan swung the sword, sweeping it towards the cultivator surnamed Jin. The cultivator surnamed Jin took out a black shield. The giant sword shadow hit it, but the shield turned into a tortoise shadow. Another magic tool with a demon beast soul. This tortoise demon beast seems to be quite extraordinary. The giant sword shadow slashed forward, but was blocked by the tortoise shell. The impact of the collision wasn't small. The giant sword shadow was shaken away, and the cultivator surnamed Jin was also pushed back a few meters by the impact. The giant sword shadow only dimmed a bit. Wang Daoyuan continued to attack, swinging the sword downwards. The cultivator surnamed Jin raised the shield above his head, taking the blow head-on. As the sword came down from above, he couldn't block it, so the full impact of the collision hit him. After the collision, Wang Daoyuan was pushed back a few steps, while the cultivator surnamed Jin coughed up a mouthful of blood. The giant sword shadow was already transparent, but it still wasn't broken. Wang Daoyuan swung the sword again. The cultivator surnamed Jin turned into a puff of black smoke, disappearing from where he stood. When the sword hit the ground, the giant sword shadow shattered, but only left a shallow mark on the ground. The cultivator surnamed Jin's escape technique wasn't inferior to Cloud Mist Escape. After half a breath, he appeared a few dozen meters away. There's still less than 30 breaths left. There's still a chance to attack again. Wang Daoyuan's sword's spirit energy fluctuated violently again. Chapter 253. Yang Yong also knew about the conflict between the Jin and Wang family. He immediately advised, "Daoyuan, you have already passed the test. There is no need to compete anymore." Even if he didn't give face to the monk, he still had to give face to the Buddha. Since Yang Yong had personally spoken, he still had to give face to him. Wang Daoyuan stopped casting spells, but the cultivator surnamed Jin was still unconvinced. Yang Yong was afraid that he would look for trouble again, so he quickly said, "I used to think that Daoyuan was only good with the whip. I didn't expect that he had also learned the spells of swordsmanship." Wang Daoyuan knew what he was trying to do. He wanted to scare the guy surnamed Jin and prevent the two of them from continuing to fight. Thus he replied, "It's just a spar. There's no need to use my true abilities. I'll use some of my newly learned spells to ask senior martial brother Jin for advice." When the cultivator surnamed Jin heard this, he knew that Wang Daoyuan still had some tricks up his sleeves. Even if he used his family's secret technique, he might not necessarily win. If he were to continue fighting, he would still be defeated even if he were to use his clan's secret art. If that happened, not only would he lose face, but his entire family would also lose face. He didn't want to fight anymore, so he swallowed a healing pill and sat down to recover. The cultivator surnamed Jean could not fight for the time being, so the other two cultivators from the Netherworld sect had to take the test first. Next, Wang Daoxing attacked. The person in charge of testing him was a cultivator from the Netherworld sect. Wang Daoxing's strength was too strong, so the two of them did not overdo it. Not long after, all the early and late Foundation establishment cultivators finished their tests. Everyone passed. The Netherworld sect only looked for cultivators from their clan to be scapegoats. The main force was still the cultivators of their own sect, so it was fine as long as the scapegoats weren't too weak. The other middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were even more miserable. The cultivator surnamed Jean was beaten up by Wang Daoyuan and lost a lot of face. He did not dare to find trouble with Wang Daoyuan, so he could only vent his anger on the other cultivators. Using his family's secret arts one after another, he tortured the other middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators to an extremely miserable state. However, he had a sense of propriety and allowed all the cultivators to pass the test. It was just that they were all heavily injured. After the participating cultivators finished their tests, everyone returned to their respective homes. 20 days later, they officially set off. Wang Daoyuan and Wang Daoxing didn't run around either. They cultivated in their family's shop. 20 days later, more than 10 people arrived at the entrance of the Netherworld sect's headquarters in Clear Glass Market. Not long after everyone arrived, Yang Yong came in front of everyone and took out a half-foot-long flying boat magic tool from his storage bag. After injecting spiritual energy into it, the flying boat rapidly expanded, eventually reaching a length of more than 30 meters and a width of 30 to 40 meters. The cultivators participating in the battle boarded the flying ship and headed west. About 20,000 miles to the west of Qingli City, one would reach the border between Guanshan Prefecture and Guangyuan Prefecture. Guangyuan Prefecture was the smallest prefecture in the state of Zhou. It was only half the size of Qingli Prefecture. However, apart from Trinity River County, it was the most important county in the Zhou country. Guangyuan Prefecture's terrain was low-lying and the land was flat. There was plenty of water and spirit veins, and spirit fields were everywhere. 1/3 of the spirit fields in the state of Zhou were in Guangyuan Prefecture. Darkwater Commandery surrounded Guangyuan Commandery from the west and north. Directly to the north was the territory of Guanshan Commandery. There were mountains and valleys, and very few flatlands could be seen. The terrain was dangerous, and it was the northern barrier between Guangyuan Commandery and Sanhe Commandery. The location of the battle was at the western border of Darkwater Commandery, northwest of Guangyuan Commandery, and the northernmost tip of Trinity River County. It was about 40,000 miles away from Qingli City. Riding a Grade 3 flying ship, the speed was very fast and they arrived in a little more than a day. The location of the battle was next to the Spirit Stone mine that the two sects were fighting over. Everyone arrived a few days in advance so that they could get used to the venue. The mountain where the Spirit Stone mine was located was called Pine Elm Mountain. It was 1,000 miles to the west of Darkwater River, at the source of a small tributary. The mountain stretched for more than 200 miles, and the highest point was no more than 300 meters. The mountain was covered with spirit trees like pine and elm trees, hence the name. Pine Elm Mountain only had a small Grade 1 mid-grade spirit vein. Before the discovery of the Spirit Stone mine, there was no development value at all. Therefore, the two sects did not take Pine Elm Mountain seriously, and used it as the boundary mountain between the two sects' territories. Now that a sizable Spirit Stone mine had been discovered, neither side was willing to give in. When Wang Daoyuan and the rest arrived, there were already many cultivators participating in the battle. The battle was on a flat ground in the south of Pine Elm Mountain. This flat ground was 4 to 5 miles long and 3 miles wide. The cultivators of Cruel Sun Palace were stationed on the west side of the battleground, while the cultivators of Underworld sect were stationed on the east side. After the cultivators of both sides arrived, they first observed the venue. The Underworld sect had a rule that cultivators of the affiliated families had to wear the clothes of their own family. Wearing clothes without permission would be severely punished. Wang Daoyuan felt that this rule of the Underworld sect was specifically used to trick the Wang family, deliberately letting them attract the hatred of Cruel Sun Palace. Such a bad idea was definitely from the external branch of the Underworld sect, and it was very likely that Liang personally came up with it. As expected, the moment Wang Daoyuan and Wang Daoxing appeared, the cultivators of Cruel Sun Palace turned red. It could not be helped. The Wang family's clothes had a bounty over at Cruel Sun Palace all year round, so the people of Cruel Sun Palace all knew the Wang family's clothes. A few cultivators of Cruel Sun Palace cursed at the Wang family, constantly provoking them, asking them to fight one-on-one. Wang Daoyuan naturally did not care about this little trick. What surprised him was that his second brother Wang Daoxing did not react. According to Wang Daoxing's temper, he should have rushed up at this time. Wang Daoyuan was ready to hold him down, but he did not move at all. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Second brother, what happened to you? According to your temper in the past, you should have rushed up directly." Wang Daoxing laughed, "I'm almost 70 years old, how can I not know anything? If I rushed up directly, I would definitely die and implicate the family. There's no use in arguing with this group of people. I've already remembered those who scolded the most fiercely. I won't let any of the early foundation establishment cultivators go, and you can't let the 2 middle foundation establishment cultivators go either." Wang Daoyuan patted his shoulder and said, "Second brother, with your words, you can take charge in the future." Wang Daoxing just smiled and did not say anything. The day of the duel arrived quickly. All the duels were arranged on this field and were not carefully divided. The order of the duels started from early foundation establishment. The rules of the duel were also very simple. All methods could be used, but they could not exceed the realm. In other words, poisons, hidden weapons, spirit talismans, beast taming, corpse refining, and all sorts of other methods could be used, but they must not exceed the user's cultivation realm. The grade of the external objects used by early foundation establishment cultivators could not exceed the early second grade. The winner and loser were also very simple. One side died, went out of bounds and admitted defeat, and the duel would determine the winner. The winner could apply for an hour of rest before starting the next duel. Although this was a little slow, cultivators lived long lives and did not care about this time. The duel soon began. The early foundation establishment cultivators of both sides came to the edge of the duel field, ready to fight. Of the 40 people on the Netherworld sect's side, only 5 were from the main sect. The rest were from the subsidiary families. Half of the Cruel Sun Palace's side were from the main sect, while the Netherworld sect's cultivators were from the main sect. In terms of responsibility, the Netherworld sect was truly lacking. A third-level foundation establishment cultivator of the Cruel Sun Palace ran to the center of the field and shouted towards the Netherworld sect's side, "Cowards of the Jade Spring Wang clan, get over here and die." Wang Daoxing was just about to step forward when Wang Daoyuan took out more than 100 low-grade second-grade spirit talismans, saying, "If you can win, then fight. If you can't, then use the spirit talismans to smash him to death. I have plenty of spirit talismans here. Use as much as you want, no need to save them." Wang Daoxing accepted the spirit talismans and put them into his storage bag. He took out a door-sized greatsword and walked into the duel field. A Zifu disciple of the Myriad Spirit sect flew into the air above the duel field and announced the start of the duel. For the sake of fairness, the Myriad Spirit sect's cultivators were the referees. The referees were supervised by the cultivators of the Netherworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace. Wang Daoxing's opponent also walked the path of body refinement. He was also a metal-type cultivator and wielded a large saber. The two's battle was simple and unadorned. After each used a defensive spell, they swung their weapons at each other. Chapter 254. Although the battle moves were simple, the battle of words added a bit of fun to the battle. The cultivator of Cruel Sun Palace scolded, "Wang family's coward, you finally dare to show your face. See if I don't kill you to avenge my sect's elders." Wang Daoxing said in disdain, "In a head-on battle, your Cruel Sun Palace's elders bullied me with numbers and were even killed by my sect's patriarch. You juniors still have the face to talk about revenge? Everyone says that Cruel Sun Palace focuses on body refinement, but what you focus on is your face." The Underworld sect side laughed loudly and the Cruel Sun Palace cultivator's face was a little embarrassed. With every move, the two of them would scold each other. The Cruel Sun Palace cultivator had the advantage in terms of inheritance while Wang Daoxing had the advantage in terms of combat experience. The Cruel Sun Palace cultivator had clearly not experienced life and death battles. After being scolded by Wang Daoxing, he lost his mind and fought head-on. When fighting with an opponent of similar strength, it would be strange if he wasn't dealt with by brute force. After the two of them fought for an hour, the cruel Sun Palace cultivator was a little tired and Wang Daoxing gradually gained the upper hand with his rich battle experience. At this time, the cruel Sun Palace cultivator could admit defeat. If he continued to fight, he would definitely lose. However, this group of hotheads would rather die than admit defeat. Be it his sect's elders or himself, none of them had the intention to admit defeat. When the defeat was certain, the cruel Sun Palace cultivator used a forbidden technique and burned his quintessential essence to fight Wang Daoxing to the death. Wang Daoxing was experienced in battle and naturally knew how to deal with it. He used the Earth Armor Talisman and Spirit Travel Talisman to pull away from his opponent and used talismans to exhaust his opponent. The forbidden technique couldn't last long and the cruel Sun Palace cultivator only lasted for 100 breaths of time before he ran out of quintessential essence and became extremely weak. This person cursed the Wang family the most fiercely, so Wang Daoxing naturally wouldn't let him off and killed him with a sword. A series of curses came from the cruel Sun Palace side. Although the cruel Sun Palace cultivator was a hothead, his strength was comparable to Wang Daoxing. The two of them fought to the death for an hour and Wang Daoxing used more than 30 talismans. His spirit energy was greatly depleted and he had many injuries on his body. He proposed to rest for 2 hours. Wang Daoyuan immediately ran to the field and gave it a rejuvenation pill and a dozen golden thread jade peaches to help it recover its injuries and spiritual power. Before the break was over, the referee flew to the sky above the arena and announced, "For the sake of fairness, the participating cultivators are not allowed to use forbidden techniques. Those who violate the rules will be killed by this referee." In addition, the use of external objects was restricted. The number of talismans used in each match should not exceed 20, and the number of refined corpses, ghosts and spirit beasts should not exceed 2. Take no more than 10 spirit pills of any kind, and no more than 5 caddies of spirit wine. This was blatantly targeting the Wang clan, but the method was not very clever. Wang Daoyuan transmitted his voice to second brother. "If you're at a disadvantage, just admit defeat. Don't take it head-on. The most important thing is to stay alive. Leave the rest to me." Wang Daoxing nodded and did not reply. After the 2-hour break ended, Wang Daoyuan left the arena. The cruel Sun Palace learned their lesson and sent out a young cultivator with scars on his face. This person was over 9 feet tall and was a size bigger than Wang Daoxing. With bulging muscles, it seemed like he also walked the path of body refinement. This person was full of killing intent, but this killing intent was not the same as the killing intent of the Profoundine Spring. Instead, it seemed to be accumulated from killing too many people. This kind of killing intent that formed spontaneously would not harm the body, but would easily affect the mind. Looking at this person's killing intent, he must have killed hundreds of people. But it was not certain if they were human cultivators or monster beasts. His fighting experience was definitely not weak, at least not lower than Wang Daoxing. This cultivator took out a magic tool. His magic tool was not a sword, but a low-grade Tier 2 mountain-splitting axe. Looking at his clothes, he was also an elite disciple of the cruel Sun Palace. His body refinement inheritance was definitely stronger than Wang Daoxing's. This person's cultivation was also slightly higher than Wang Daoxing's, only a step away from Foundation Establishment Level 4. Wang Daoxing had almost no chance of winning. It would be good enough if he could escape unscathed. The two started to fight. The cruel Sun Palace cultivator chopped down with his axe. Wang Daoxing was a metal attribute cultivator and could not cultivate the cloud mist escape. He also did not have any brilliant escape techniques, so he could only receive the axe. However, he was also experienced in hundreds of battles and would not stupidly receive it head-on. He held the hilt of the giant sword with his right hand and raised it high, using his left arm to support the sword. The giant sword was high on the right and low on the left. The mountain-splitting axe struck down and slid down the sword to the left. Wang Daoxing borrowed the force to dodge to the right, neutralizing most of the force. The cruel Sun Palace cultivator's attack was powerful, but it was easily neutralized by Wang Daoxing. He was a little embarrassed. However, cultivators who used heavy magic tools usually fought head-on with very few variations. There was no way to play tricks. The cruel Sun Palace cultivator's attack did not work, so he followed up with a second attack. This time the axe swept towards Wang Daoxing. Wang Daoxing stabbed the giant sword in his hand into the crevice of the rock on the ground and held the hilt with both hands to receive the attack. In the end there was a difference in strength. The axe swept Wang Daoxing and his sword away. The giant sword stabbed into the crevice of the rock, causing a piece of rock to break. Wang Daoxing was sent flying more than 5 feet away. When he landed, he found that the giant sword in his hand was severely damaged. There were already cracks on the sword. With the magic tool broken, his life might be in danger if he continued fighting. Wang Daoyuan shouted, "Second brother, quickly admit defeat." Wang Daoxing struggled for a while before admitting defeat. The referee immediately announced the end of the duel. The Cruel Sun Palace cultivators cheered. Wang Daoxing walked out of the duel with a face full of disappointment. Wang Daoyuan persuaded, "Second brother, don't take it to heart. After all, the Cruel Sun Palace's body refinement inheritance is the strongest among the 3 great sections. It's not something our Wang family can compare to. Your defeat this time is not because of your fighting." The duel on the field continued. After 2 days, the early stage foundation establishment battle was finally decided. The Netherworld sect sent out very few cultivators. The cultivators of their subsidiary clans could not compare to the Cruel Sun Palace disciples. In the end, the Cruel Sun Palace won with a huge advantage with more than 10 people left. It was the turn of the middle stage foundation establishment cultivators. The middle stage foundation establishment cultivators from both sides came to the side of the field. Half of the Cruel Sun Palace's side were from their own sect. The Netherworld sect only had 6 cultivators from their own sect. The referee announced the start of the middle stage foundation establishment battle. A 5th-level foundation establishment cultivator from the Cruel Sun Palace immediately jumped up and shouted, "Wang family's gutless scoundrel, get up here." Wang Daoyuan walked onto the duel field and used his spiritual sense to scan his opponent. This guy was also a body refinement cultivator. His body was not weak, but he was like a fledgling with no battle experience. It would not take much effort to deal with this kind of simpleton. Wang Daoyuan took out his black gold sword and said with disdain, "In the last few breaths of your life, you don't even leave behind a few last words. You just said such nonsense." When the opponent heard this, he used a defensive spell and rushed towards him with his giant sword. At this time, a small dark cloud in the sky covered the sun, leaving a small shadow on the duel field. Wang Daoyuan spread out his spiritual sense to suppress his opponent. Then he disappeared from his opponent's sight. After a breath, Wang Daoyuan appeared 3 feet behind his opponent. The black gold sword was still dripping with blood. The opponent was lying on the ground with his defensive spell broken. There was a bloody wound on his neck that was still bleeding. The Cruel Sun Palace's side was in an uproar. Someone asked the elders what happened. A Zifu disciple replied, "This Wang family cultivator used the first stage shadow evasion spell to hide in the shadows. A foundation establishment cultivator's spiritual sense could easily see through it. But his spiritual sense was too strong and completely suppressed his opponent." This shadow evasion spell was obtained by Wang Daoyuan when he killed the Blood Shadow Assassin when he was at the 7th level of Qi Disciple. He did not take it seriously before and only used it a few times in the forest of Green Willow Province. Wang Daoyuan shook the sword in his hand, shaking off the blood on it, and said indifferently, "Next." Chapter 255. The Netherworld sect's morale was low due to their loss in the early stage foundation establishment duel. Now that Wang Daoyuan killed a cultivator of the Cruel Sun Palace in one move, the Netherworld sect's camp burst into cheers. Wang Daoxing was especially excited. Although he had matured a bit, he still had a bad temper. The cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace insulted the Wang clan, but he couldn't kill them all. He felt very sullen. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan instantly killed a person. Wang Daoxing was very happy and shouted, "Seventh brother, well done. Kill these cowardly rats." The cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace were not to be outdone. Several early-stage foundation establishment cultivators started cursing at Wang Daoxing. The Zifu disciple who answered the question earlier said to the Cruel Sun Palace's participants, "This person's spiritual sense cultivation is far superior to others of the same stage. He has rich experience in fighting. The sword in his hand is also very sharp. It can directly break through defensive spells and kill a body refinement cultivator." He guessed that his ability to fight head-on shouldn't be strong, so he sent a cultivator with a powerful defensive spell. The Wang clan doesn't have any spiritual sense attack methods. He shouldn't be able to directly attack with his spiritual sense. At most he should be able to suppress it. As long as you can block his sneak attack, killing him will be easy. Who dares to kill this Wang clan brat and avenge our ancestors? As soon as the Zifu disciple finished speaking, a 5th stage foundation establishment cultivator stood up and said, "I'll do it." Before he finished speaking, he had already run into the duel arena. After standing still, he took out a short sword and a shield. Wang Daoyuan used his spiritual sense to scan the opponent and found that he didn't seem to be a body refinement cultivator. However, the short sword and shield were not ordinary. They were a rare combination magic tool. When he used his spiritual sense to scan them, he found that the two magic tools had a clear connection. It seemed that the tool patterns on them could fuse together at any time. This cultivator didn't waste any words. He directly took out the short sword and flew towards Wang Daoyuan. Under Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense, he found that the cultivator's spiritual sense didn't directly act on the short sword, but directly on the shield. Through the connection between the shield and the short sword, he controlled the short sword to attack. The speed and power of this short sword were much stronger than the flying swords used by ordinary cultivators. Seeing the dagger flying towards him, Wang Daoyuan didn't know how strong his opponent was, so he didn't dare to take it head-on. Instead, he used the smoke escape and dodged the attack. Then he waved the black gold sword in his hand, and a long sword shadow flew out and hit the shield-wielding cultivator. The shield-wielding cultivator held his shield horizontally. The shield instantly turned into a tortoise, blocking the sword phantom. At the same time, the dagger turned into a viper and pounced on him. Wang Daoyuan had a strange look on his face. This move seemed familiar. During the Clearly Market test, Elder Jin's great-grandson also used this move. The combination of the artifact and the combined artifact was the complete path. That kid surnamed Jin only had the shape but not the spirit. The complete version of the shield-wielding cultivator's combined magical treasure would definitely be even more powerful. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to take it head-on. He used the cloud mist escape to dodge the attack. Then he used the myriad sword art, and condensed dozens of long sword phantoms. He controlled the long sword phantoms to attack the shield-wielding cultivator. The shield-wielding cultivator used his shield to block the long sword phantoms. How could Wang Daoyuan let him do as he wished? After half a year of practice, Wang Daoyuan could already control the myriad sword art as easily as Li Qingchuan. He separated the dozens of long sword phantoms and surrounded the opponent from all directions. No matter which direction the opponent's shield was defending, the other places were all weak. The shield-wielding cultivator immediately called back the dagger that had turned into a viper. The dagger and the shield merged into one, and the phantom of the black tortoise appeared to protect him. Wang Daoyuan's long sword phantoms attacked from all directions at the same time. They were all blocked by the phantom of the black tortoise and did not hurt the opponent at all. He naturally knew how powerful the black tortoise was. It was the divine beast with the strongest defense. Even if it was just a phantom, it was not easy to break through it. At the very least, he would need to use the heaven-slashing sword 4 or 5 times. This was only the second round. He would try his best not to use spells with high destructive power, in case the sword cultivator on the other side attacked first. Since he could not break the tortoise's shell, he would exhaust him. The black tortoise was of the water attribute. This cultivator should also be a water attribute cultivator. The most suitable way to fight a water attribute cultivator was to use earth attribute spirit energy. This black tortoise phantom was not particularly big. It was only 3 meters long and 8 feet wide. Wang Daoyuan used the quagmire technique to create a muddy ground, and wrapped the black tortoise phantom inside. Before joining the battle, he suppressed the spirit energy seed and converted all the spirit energy in his body. Now his spirit energy did not have any special attributes. The quagmire technique was also not corrosive. While he controlled the quagmire technique, there was also a trace of spirit energy fluctuation on the sword in his hand. As long as the opponent dared to remove the black tortoise phantom, he would use the myriad sword art to attack. The Savage Sun Palace cultivator did not dare to remove the black tortoise phantom, and tried his best to break free from the quagmire technique. He could only barely maintain the black tortoise phantom and fight a war of attrition with Wang Daoyuan. Apprentice spirit root cultivator had never feared anyone in a war of attrition. Moreover, he could drink 5 caddies of spirit wine. Some spirit peach dew had already been brewed in the space of the spirit pearl. Although it was not aged, the main ingredient was a low-grade grade 2 golden jade peach. Its ability to recover spirit energy was not inferior to a 100-year-old scarlet blood wine. Furthermore, Wang Daoyuan only had to maintain the quagmire technique. It did not consume much spirit energy, and it would not be a problem for him to last for 4 to 6 hours. However, the opponent had to maintain an extremely powerful defensive spell, which consumed much more spirit energy. At most, he would be able to last for an hour. Clearly, Wang Daoyuan had overestimated his opponent. After the two of them were in a stalemate for 15 minutes, the opponent could not hold on any longer. The black tortoise phantom had clearly dimmed and was very unstable. It would probably only take half a cup of tea's time for this brat's spirit energy to be exhausted. The Savage Sun Palace Zifu Realm Cultivator shouted, "Admit defeat, you are not his match." Wang Daoyuan wanted to use Heaven Cleaving Sword to kill his opponent before he spoke. After thinking for a moment, he still did not make the decision to attack. To Wang Daoyuan, the most important thing was to obtain 5 consecutive victories. Whether or not he could kill his opponent was not important. Furthermore, if he killed his opponent in this arena, the items of the deceased would be taken back by his faction. Even if he killed this Savage Sun Palace cultivator with the tortoise shell, he would not be able to obtain the combined Dharma treasure. Apart from venting his anger, there was no other benefit. Instead, it might cause the lightning attribute sword cultivator to enter the arena earlier. The Savage Sun Palace cultivator wanted to continue, but when he saw the dimming black tortoise phantom, he could only sigh and shout, "I admit defeat." The referee announced the end of the battle. Wang Daoyuan had obtained victory. The Savage Sun Palace cultivator withdrew the black tortoise phantom, and Wang Daoyuan withdrew the quagmire technique. This cultivator walked back dejectedly. The Savage Sun Palace cultivators were so angry that they all asked for a rematch. The underworld sect side once again erupted into cheers. Wang Daoxing was also very happy, and once again began to curse the Savage Sun Palace cultivator. This time Wang Daoyuan did not immediately invite his next opponent to enter the arena. Instead, he requested to rest and meditate to recover his spirit energy. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, his spirit energy had completely recovered. Wang Daoyuan stood up, shouting towards the Savage Sun Palace cultivators, "Is there no one who can fight?" The Savage Sun Palace cultivators all had fiery tempers. How could they endure this? They all asked for a rematch. The Zifu Realm cultivator said, "I didn't expect that this Wang clan cultivator would have some ability to fight head-on. However, he isn't very strong. Continue with the previous strategy. Send up a cultivator who can block his longsword. That way, even if you cannot win, you can at least preserve your life. If you want to win, it's best if your attack or dodging techniques are stronger." Chapter 256. Several cultivators from the Savage Sun Palace requested to fight, but the Zifu Realm cultivator didn't agree. It wasn't until an armored 6th-level Foundation Establishment cultivator came forward and requested to fight that the Zifu Realm cultivator said, "If Xuanhu fights, it won't be a problem to take down that kid from the Wang clan. You're also one of the main forces in the mid-stage Foundation Establishment duel. Try not to be injured when you kill that kid. Try to defeat more cultivators from the underworld sect later on. Don't put too much pressure on Wu Dao." The armored cultivator cupped his hands and said, "Elder, don't worry. I'll definitely defeat the Wang clan cultivator." With that, he walked towards the duel arena. Wang Daoyuan stared at the newcomer, only to see that the newcomer was clad in black armor, with flying tigers engraved on it. The armored cultivator came to the center of the arena and took out a silver spear from his storage bag. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and asked, "I'm Wang Daoyuan of the Jade Spring Wang clan. May I ask if you're a cultivator from the Wei clan of Cold River Pass?" The armored cultivator cupped his hands and returned the greeting. "Wei Xuanhu of the Wei clan of Cold River Pass greets Daoyu." The Cold River Pass was a pass in the northwest corner of the Zhao country. At the same time, it faced the threat of demon beasts and Wei country. The Wei clan of Cold River Pass was very similar to the Wang clan. They were also old officials of the Zhao family. The Wei clan didn't have a long history, only about 600 years. The Wei clan ancestor and the Wang clan ancestor were good friends and had fought side by side. The Wei clan's patriarch was just an ordinary gatekeeper at the Cold River Pass. What he learned were the most basic cultivation techniques and spells used in battle formations. However, the Wei clan ancestor was extremely talented. He relied on these simple techniques and Dharma spells to make outstanding military achievements. The Zhou royal family rewarded him with a foundation establishment pill. The Wei clan ancestor successfully reached the foundation establishment realm and used the military's cultivation techniques and Dharma spells as a foundation to create a suitable technique and Dharma spell for himself. After that, the Wei clan ancestor used his self-created techniques and Dharma spells to shine in the military. In the end, he was conferred the title of Marquis of Cold River due to his military achievements. His fief was near the Cold River Pass. The ancestor of the Wei family had become a golden core cultivator more than 400 years ago. He had gradually perfected his cultivation methods and spells, leaving behind a powerful legacy for the Wei family. However, when the three great sects rebelled, he supported the first prince and fought to the death with him. The successor of the Wei family was disheartened by the Zhou family and surrendered to the Cruel Sun Palace. This was because the Wei clan had surrendered to the Cruel Sun Palace before the three major sects gained the upper hand. The Cruel Sun Palace used the Wei family as a sign to recruit the Zhou family's subordinate forces and gave the Wei family the treatment of a direct descendant of the Cruel Sun Palace. All these years, the Wei family's situation was much better than the Wang family's. Although there were no more Jindan cultivators, there were now 3 Zifu disciples, all of whom were elders of the Crescent Sun Palace. The Wei family's heritage was rich in knowledge, including body refinement and Dharma spells. Their core inheritance was spear techniques. The Wei family's spear techniques were similar to those of sword cultivators. The Wei family's inheritance was very comprehensive. Although there were no outstanding advantages, there were no obvious weaknesses either. To Wang Daoyuan, the only weakness of the Wei clan's inheritance was that its escape technique was not as good as the smoke escape. This was also his chance to win. After the two saluted each other, the battle officially began. Wei Xuanhu thrust his silver spear at Wang Daoyuan's throat. Wang Daoyuan did not choose to dodge but to attack back. The Wei clan's spear techniques were infused with the art of war. They emphasized on using momentum to suppress the enemy and were best at chasing after the enemy. If one chose to dodge, Wei Xuanhu would gain the upper hand and use momentum to suppress the enemy. His following moves and Dharma spells would become more and more powerful. The best way was to not give in from the start and suppress his momentum. Wang Daoyuan used his black gold sword to block the silver spear and used the smoke escape to charge at Wei Xuanhu. The silver spear was 6 feet long. Once Wang Daoyuan got close to it, it would be difficult for it to display its power. Wei Xuanhu released the silver spear in his right hand and clenched his fist, punching at Wang Daoyuan. His fist collided with Wang Daoyuan's right shoulder, and both of them were pushed back 3 feet. Wang Daoyuan seized the opportunity and brandished his long sword. 5 long sword phantoms appeared and attacked Wei Xuanhu. At the same time, Wei Xuanhu brandished his spear a few times. The spearhead released a few waves of energy, which had the feel of a sword cultivator's sword chi. The 5 long sword phantoms and the waves of energy from the silver spear were quickly shattered. After Wang Daoyuan released the sword chi, he immediately accumulated his spiritual energy and prepared to use the sky-chopping sword. After Wei Xuanhu brandished his spear, the spiritual energy on his spear surged. After 3 breaths of time, a 25 feet long giant sword phantoms appeared on the long sword in Wang Daoyuan's hand. He brandished the giant sword and hacked at Wei Xuanhu. On Wei Xuanhu's long spear, the phantoms of a 20 feet long ferocious tiger with wings appeared. The ferocious tiger flew away from the long spear and collided with the giant sword. The giant sword was bitten in half by the ferocious tiger, and the remaining part of the sword slashed at the ferocious tiger's body. The tiger phantoms became extremely dim. Wei Xuanhu's cultivation was 1 level higher than Wang Daoyuan's, and the Wei clan's inheritance was also far superior to the Gui Yuan sword sect's inheritance. Wang Daoyuan had expected that Wei Xuanhu would be at a disadvantage in this exchange of blows. The white tiger phantoms continued to pounce at Wang Daoyuan. The spiritual energy in Wang Daoyuan's hand surged, and in half a breath's time, a flaming meteorite was completely condensed. He threw it at the tiger phantoms. The flaming meteorite destroyed the tiger phantoms, and with the remaining energy, it continued to smash at Wei Xuanhu. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape and followed behind the flaming meteorite. He held his long sword and was prepared to kill Wei Xuanhu in one blow. At this moment, Wei Xuanhu no longer had the time to cast any powerful spells. He could only wave his silver spear and destroy the flaming meteorite, then use the spear shaft to block the long sword. After the long sword touched the spear shaft, Wang Daoyuan let go of the long sword and used the imperial sword technique, controlling the flying sword to change its direction and fly past the spear shaft. The two of them passed by each other and the black gold sword slashed at Wei Xuanhu's neck. Wei Xuanhu could only tilt his head to dodge and the long sword slashed his neck. Fortunately, his neck was protected by the armor and he tilted his head to dodge, which reduced the force of the attack. The black gold sword only left a sword mark on the armor. Wang Daoyuan divided his attention and condensed another flaming meteorite in his hand, throwing it at Wei Xuanhu's back. Wei Xuanhu had just escaped death and he had no time to dodge. He gave up on dodging and decided to exchange injury for injury. He waved his silver spear and swept it at Wang Daoyuan. He was hit by the flaming meteorite and he almost fell to the ground. Wang Daoyuan's back was also hit by his spear and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The Wei clan's spear technique was powerful only if it had momentum. However, when he was fighting against Wang Daoyuan, he was disrupted by the smoke escape. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't give him the chance to stabilize his position, and he continuously condensed meteorites in his hand. He used the smoke escape to change his position, and he threw the flaming meteorites at Wei Xuanhu from different directions. Wei Xuanhu couldn't dodge in time and he was hit repeatedly. After 20 breaths of time, Wei Xuanhu was hit 6 or 7 times by the flaming meteorites. Wang Daoyuan persuaded, Wei Dao, our clans can be considered old friends. We have no enmity and I can't bear to kill you. Just admit defeat. The Zifu disciple of the Cruel Sun Palace Hall also sighed and said, Xuanhu, just admit defeat. Wei Xuanhu admitted defeat in a low voice, and he walked out of the dueling ground dejectedly. The Zifu disciple said, I didn't expect that Taoist Master Yuchuan's descendant would have such a character. He was actually so good at hiding his strength and even managed to deceive me. Among the Cruel Sun Palace Hall's cultivators, a cultivator with a long sword on his back asked, Martial uncle, should I make a move? The Zifu disciple refused, absolutely not. You are our final trump card, how can you take the risk? Before we figure out the strength of the Wang clan's kid, you must not make a move. Chapter 257. The cultivators from the Netherworld sect also felt that it was inconceivable. The disciples of the three sects often competed with each other and had some understanding of each other. Wei Xuanhu was quite famous among the younger generation of the state of Zhao. They didn't expect that he would be defeated by an unknown cultivator from the Wang clan. The leading elder of the Netherworld sect found it hard to believe that Wang Daoyuan, a cultivator from the Netherworld sect, was able to defeat one of the main forces of the Cruel Sun Palace. The main forces of the Netherworld sect were all experts who could obtain 4 or 5 consecutive victories in a duel between the early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators. Wang Daoxing shouted excitedly and continued to greet the cultivators of the Netherworld sect. On the side of the Cruel Sun Palace, a 3-meter-tall cultivator with bulging muscles said, Martial uncle, I'll fight him. The Zifu realm cultivator thought for a moment and said, All right, Black Flame, you'll fight in the next round. That brat from the Wang clan isn't a body refiner and his body is far inferior to yours. You'll exchange injuries with him. Even if you can't win, you'll still be able to injure him heavily. Black Flame replied, Martial uncle, don't worry. I'll definitely take him down. Wang Daoyuan applied for 2 hours of recovery time and was swept by Wei Xuanhu's spear shaft. Although he wasn't heavily injured, his qi and blood were still somewhat impeded. He took out a jar of 100-year-old scarlet blood wine and drank a few mouthfuls before meditating to recover. Using pills and spirit wine to recover during the rest time was not restricted. After 2 hours, the recovery time ended and the next duel began. Black Flame walked into the duel arena. Wang Daoyuan used both his spiritual sense and his eyes to investigate him. He discovered that Black Flame didn't seem to have cultivated any body refiner technique. but his body was stronger than ordinary body refiners. Moreover, his skin was dark and there were silver stripes on it. It seemed that he was born with it. Even his black hair had white stripes. If he were to lie on the ground, he would really look like a tiger. Wang Daoyuan guessed that he should be a half-demon with the bloodline of some tiger-type demonic beast. After the two bowed, they began to fight. Black Flame's hands formed into claws and pounced towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan didn't know how strong he was, so he didn't dare to take it head-on. He used the smoke escape technique to avoid the attack. After He Yan missed, he landed on the ground. His four limbs tapped lightly on the ground and he leaped up like a big cat, pouncing towards Wang Daoyuan again. Half-demons had the bloodlines of both humans and monsters. Their bodies were extremely strong and their intelligence was not inferior to humans. However, their cultivation path usually chose to develop the talents brought about by the bloodline of monsters. The strength of tiger-type demonic beasts lay in their physical bodies. They did not specialize in the aspect of divine sense. Moreover, this fellow did not cultivate any body refinement techniques, nor did he have any armor or other defensive artifacts on him. Wang Daoyuan planned to use the same trick again, using his divine sense to suppress his opponent and then slashing his throat with his sword. He used Cloud Mist Escape to avoid Black Flame's attack and used his divine sense to suppress Black Flame. Just as Black Flame was about to land on the ground, he used the Cloud Mist Escape to conceal himself and used Shadow Escape to rush towards Black Flame. The two of them passed each other. Wang Daoyuan's inky gold sword slashed across Black Flame's neck, while Black Flame's hand struck Wang Daoyuan's stomach. There was a trace of blood on the inky gold sword and a few pieces of cloth on Black Flame's right hand. Exclamations came from both sides. There were 5 claw marks on Wang Daoyuan's clothes on his abdomen. Even the Nightmare Dragon armor was left with deep scratches. Fortunately, the Nightmare Dragon armor was strong enough to not be pierced through. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured. On the other side, Black Flame was not killed. He blocked Wang Daoyuan's sword with his left hand. There was also a long sword mark on his left hand. In this exchange, Wang Daoyuan took advantage of the Nightmare Dragon armor's protection. He also saw Black Flame's close combat ability, so he didn't dare to fight in close combat again. After being injured, Black Flame's attack didn't decrease and continued to pounce on him. Wang Daoyuan could only use Smoke Escape to dodge, but Black Flame's speed was too fast and Smoke Escape couldn't open up too much distance. He could only use other spells as he fled. Although the sky-cleaving sword was powerful, it wasn't fast enough and was easily dodged by Black Flame. Although the myriad sword art was fast enough, its lethality was too scattered. The sword phantoms were all shattered by Black Flame's claw. Wang Daoyuan could only use the meteor fall technique to balance lethality and speed. He only needed about 6 breaths of time to accumulate spirit energy. As a disciple of the Cruel Sun Palace, Black Flame naturally wouldn't just simply attack. Wang Daoyuan began to use spells with high lethality. He naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. His spirit energy surged and a fierce black tiger phantom with silver stripes appeared on his body. The black tiger phantom was burning with black flames. Wang Daoyuan ordered his doppelganger to check the myriad spirit book and found out that the tiger phantom was a 3rd-rank upper-grade demon beast called the Black Flame Tiger. His body was extremely strong and it was good at using fire attacks. He wasn't confident anymore. This guy hadn't used his trump card yet. After Black Flame used the Black Flame Tiger Phantom, his speed became even faster and was on par with the Smoke Escape. Wang Daoyuan couldn't completely dodge his attack even with the Smoke Escape. His robe was torn to shreds. Fortunately, the Nightmare Dragon armor was strong enough to block most of the attacks. Even so, Wang Daoyuan's arms and legs were scratched in places that weren't covered by the Nightmare Dragon armor. The Meteor Fall technique finished charging and a flaming meteor flew towards Black Flame. The Black Flame Tiger Phantom became more solid. It opened its mouth and spat out a black fireball which collided with the flaming meteor. The flaming meteor shattered, but the black fireball remained. It shattered another flaming meteor before completely disappearing. Wang Daoyuan threw out all 10 flaming meteors. The Black Flame Tiger Phantom also spat out 5 black fireballs, blocking all the flaming meteors. After that, the Black Flame Tiger Phantom spat out another black fireball towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan couldn't use any of the spells he could, so he could only use the golden rock wrestling dragon technique. Otherwise he would be quickly defeated by Black Flame. He used the smoke escape to escape while condensing the golden rock phantom at the same time. It took about 8 breaths to condense the golden rock phantom. During this time Wang Daoyuan was scratched more than 10 times, and 3 of them directly hit his body. Fortunately, when condensing the golden rock phantom he had spirit energy to protect his body. Most of Black Flame's attacks were blocked by the protective spirit energy. The places where he was scratched weren't serious. After 8 breaths, a sharp eagle cry sounded, and the golden rock phantom with a wingspan of more than 60 meters appeared. Black Flame's pouncing speed also paused and the golden rock phantom pounced towards him. A tiger and a rock were fighting. In the past, Wang Daoyuan often observed the fight between Jin Yi and Yun Yi, and imitated Jin Yi's fighting posture. The golden rock phantom's close combat ability was very strong, and Black Flame was quickly at a disadvantage. He controlled the Black Flame Tiger Phantom to spit out 5 black fireballs in a row, and Wang Daoyuan controlled the Golden Rock Phantom to release 100 feather blades at the same time. The power of the black fireballs was about 20 times that of a medium-grade second-stage Golden Knife Talisman, and slightly weaker than the 7 feather blades. The 5 black fireballs only blocked 35 feather blades, and the other feather blades all hit the Black Flame Tiger Phantom. The Black Flame Tiger Phantom was directly shattered, and Black Flame himself also spat out a mouthful of blood. Wang Daoyuan once again shot out more than 30 feather blades towards Black Flame. Although Black Flame's body was agile, the speed of the feather blades was much faster than the meteor fall technique, and he couldn't dodge at all. Even though his body was strong, he couldn't ignore the feather blades' attack, and more than 31-inch deep wounds appeared on his body. The Purple Mansion Elder of the Cruel Sun Palace immediately shouted, "Black Flame, admit defeat." Chapter 258. Wang Daoyuan was about to send out another feather blade, when Black Flame immediately shouted, "I admit defeat." This kid's surrender was simply too fast. He didn't even have time to send out his feather blade. Since Black Flame had already admitted defeat, if he continued to attack he would be violating the rules. He could only give up. The cultivators on both sides were numb. Every time Wang Daoyuan encountered a powerful opponent he would come up with a new technique. Only, this golden rock wrestling dragon technique was simply too extraordinary. The Foundation establishment cultivators on both sides all asked their elders what this golden rock illusion was. The Zifu disciples didn't recognize it either. After all, true monarch Golden Rock was someone from tens of thousands of years ago. The 3 great sects only had a few thousand years of history. They had never heard of true monarch Golden Rock's name. He put away the Golden Rock illusion and requested 2 hours of recovery time. This time his injuries were not light. Earlier, when he had used the meteor fall technique, his arms and legs had been clawed 4 or 5 times. Each claw wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. Wang Daoyuan used the rejuvenation technique on himself several times, then drank a jar of 100-year scarlet blood wine. After 2 hours of rest, his injuries had only recovered 70 to 80%. In order to fully recover he would need to rest for a few more days. He stood up and shouted towards the cultivators of the Crescent Sun Palace. "I hear that the Crescent Sun Palace has a lightning-type sword cultivator at the 6th level of Foundation establishment. Let him come up. I'll kill him and then leave." The cultivator of the Crescent Sun Palace was enraged. He immediately charged towards the dueling arena. The Zifu disciple leader grabbed him saying, "Wudao, calm down. He's just trying to provoke you. If he has other tricks up his sleeve and you rashly go up and fall into his trap, we won't have any chance of victory. Qingfen, you're fast. Go up and defeat him before he condenses his golden rock illusion. Even if you can't win you have to injure him." A handsome youth clasped his hands saying, "As you command." After speaking he transformed into a gust of wind and instantly arrived at the center of the dueling arena. After the two bowed the duel began. Wang Daoyuan, upon seeing his opponent's techniques, knew that this kid was a wind-type cultivator. He knew that speed wasn't an advantage so he didn't rely on the mist evasion to deal with him. He immediately used 5 earth armor talismans and began to use the golden rock wrestling dragon technique. Qingfen saw that he didn't care about martial ethics, so he immediately used his ultimate move. He casually cast a few wind attribute offensive spells in an attempt to interrupt the spell casting. How could a spell cast so casually interrupt the Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon technique? He quickly broke through the 5 layers of earth armor talismans and launched a series of attacks at Wang Daoyuan. The Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon technique had its own protective spirit energy which blocked most of the power. Wang Daoyuan didn't suffer much damage, only some superficial wounds. Qingfen wanted to cast a powerful spell but there wasn't enough time. 8 breaths later the Golden Rock's shadow was fully condensed. Wang Daoyuan immediately released more than 30 feather blades attacking Qingfen. Qingfen quickly dodged. At the same time his wind attribute spiritual energy formed a long robe on his body. His wind attribute evasion technique was much faster than the smoke evasion technique. However, the feather blades were even faster. Among all the spells that Wang Daoyuan cultivated, only the Earth Divine Lightning could match the speed of the feather blades. Even a high-level evasion technique would be difficult to completely dodge, not to mention the fact that multiple feather blades could be shot out in an instant. In the end, 10 feather blades hit Qingfen. The long robe he condensed was also extraordinary. It withstood the attack of the 10 feather blades and didn't immediately shatter. He immediately circulated his spirit energy to replenish the long robe's shadow. Wang Daoyuan released another 50 feather blades. This time more than 20 of them hit him. The long robe's shadow was shattered, but Qingfen also suffered serious injuries. He knew that he would die without a doubt if he took another wave of feather blades. He simply didn't persist. He didn't wait for the Split Sun Palace's elder to speak and directly admitted defeat. After this battle Wang Daoyuan rested for 2 hours. He had only fought for a dozen breaths on the field. Although he only suffered some superficial wounds, he still applied for 2 hours to recover from his previous injuries. Luo Hongming came to the field and gave Wang Daoyuan a bottle of healing pills. He said, "Dao, you fought well. You defeated 2 of the Split Sun Palace's main forces and a wind attribute cultivator. My granduncle was very satisfied and asked me to send you a bottle of jade muscle pills. As long as you take a jade muscle pill, you'll recover to your original state in a quarter of an hour." Wang Daoyuan took the bottle of pills. There were 3 jade muscle pills in the bottle. He took one and found that the effect was indeed good. In just a quarter of an hour, all his previous injuries were completely healed. Giving gifts to others meant that there was a request. The Netherworld sect master asked Luo Hongming to send healing pills. There must be a request. He cupped his hands to Luo Hongming and said, "Many thanks, Daoyu Luo. Does the sect master have any instructions?" Luo Hongming didn't speak directly. Instead he sent a voice transmission. Granduncle said that when Daoyu encounters the Split Sun Palace's Thunder Attribute Sword Cultivator, you'll be able to injure him. If you can seriously injure him, the Netherworld sect will reward Daoyu with a Tier 3 pill, artifact and talisman array inheritance. If you can defeat him, there will be another reward in addition to 4 Tier 3 legacies. If you can kill him, the Yin-Yang Purple Jade won't be a problem. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Daoyu, please tell the sect master that I'll do my best." Luo Hongming left with satisfaction. Wang Daoyuan was unhappy. The Netherworld sect's higher-ups were true cowards. Their sect's elites weren't willing to send him to fight with the Split Sun Palace's trump card. Although the Yin-Yang Purple Jade was tempting, Wang Daoyuan knew that even if he used all his means he didn't have much chance of winning. After all, the thunder escape of a Thunder Attribute Cultivator wasn't slow. However, if he used the Golden Ping Seizing Dragon art and used all his feather blades, it was still possible to seriously injure his opponent. The Split Sun Palace's side was still discussing who should go on stage. They wanted to continue sending people to test Wang Daoyuan's background. However, Wang Daoyuan didn't use any other means. He just condensed the Golden Peng's phantom from the start of the fight and ordinary Dharma spells couldn't interrupt him. The Split Sun Palace's main cultivators weren't his match. If they didn't use their trump card and sent others, it was very likely that they would just be sending themselves to death. It was already shameful enough for them to be defeated by an unknown cultivator from an unknown clan, killing 2 of their main forces and 1 of their wind attribute cultivators. What was even more embarrassing was that this person was from the Wang clan. There had always been a rumor that the Wang clan was the Split Sun Palace's nemesis. However, it was only a rumor. If they continued to send him and he killed the entire Split Sun Palace's team, then the Wang clan would be the Split Sun Palace's nemesis. The Split Sun Palace's thousands of years of inheritance was restrained by a foundation establishment clan. The entire sect had no place to hide their face. Finally, they reached an agreement to send their trump card, the lightning attribute sword cultivator. The leading Zifu realm cultivator said to the sword cultivator on his back, "Wu Dao, I believe that with your strength you can defeat your opponent. However, you can't underestimate him. We've already lost 3 experts. If you're heavily injured, the Foundation Establishment middle stage battle won't have much hope. I don't expect you to win beautifully. It's fine as long as you can defeat him without being heavily injured." The sword cultivator nodded. "Martial uncle, don't worry. I know the severity of the situation." Finished speaking, he slowly walked towards the arena. After arriving at the center of the arena, he cupped his hands. "If the cultivation environment is the same, I'm not as good as you. Unfortunately, we have different masters. Otherwise, I would be willing to be friends with you." Finished speaking, he took off the sword on his back and performed a sword salute. Split Sun Palace's profound Thunder Master's disciple Lei Wudao. "Please advise me." Wang Daoyuan wasn't a proper sword cultivator, so he didn't perform the salute. He only cupped his hands. Jade Spring Wang Clan's Wang Daoyuan. "Please advise me." Chapter 259. After the two bowed, Wang Daoyuan immediately took out 20 defensive talismans and activated them all. At the same time, he used Cloud Escape to increase the distance between him and Lei Wudao. Then he began to accumulate spirit energy to use the Golden Rock Seizing Dragon technique. Lei Wudao wouldn't just watch. His entire body turned into a bolt of lightning. Although his speed wasn't as fast as Qingfen's Wind Attribute Escape technique, it was still much faster than Wang Daoyuan's Cloud Escape. Lei Wudao caught up to him before the Cloud Escape could travel 200 feet. When Wang Daoyuan was roaming outside, he used Cloud Escape to deal with rogue cultivators. Could be said that he was always successful. But today, when he used the Cloud Mist Escape, he was successively suppressed by Black Flame, Qingfeng and Lei Wudao. After Lei Wudao caught up to Wang Daoyuan, he slashed at him. Wang Daoyuan couldn't dodge in time and could only rely on his talismans to block the attack. This sword strike directly broke through 5 defensive talismans, and the Cloud Mist Escape was also interrupted. Seeing Wang Daoyuan suffer, the cruel Sun Palace people cheered. He was about to use Cloud Escape again when Lei Wudao's second slash arrived and broke another 5 defensive talismans. Since dodging was useless, Wang Daoyuan gave up on using Cloud Escape and focused all his energy on condensing the Golden Rock's image. In the next 2 breaths of time, Lei Wudao slashed 2 more times and broke all of Wang Daoyuan's defensive talismans. The 5th slash went straight for Wang Daoyuan's neck. Although he had spirit energy to protect himself when using the Golden Rock Seizing Dragon technique, Lei Wudao's attack was too strong. However, Lei Wudao's attacks were extremely powerful, and his protective spiritual energy was unable to completely block them. His body would also be injured. If it was anywhere else, it wouldn't matter. But a wound on the neck was enough to take his life. Wang Daoyuan had no choice but to use Cloud Escape and adjust his posture, trying his best to dodge the slash. Lei Wudao also used an escape technique to follow. In the end, the slash landed on his back, leaving a foot-long sword mark that almost penetrated the turtle dragon armor. The turtle dragon armor had been damaged repeatedly and hadn't been repaired. It was now close to being scrapped. However, its raw material was still tough enough to withstand a lot of attacks. Lei Wudao once again attempted to attack Wang Daoyuan's vitals. Relying on his rich battle experience, Wang Daoyuan avoided the attack. Even when the sword struck the Nightmare Dragon armor, it was unable to cause much damage to Wang Daoyuan. Seeing that he was unable to interrupt Wang Daoyuan's Golden Rock Shadow, Lei Wudao stopped attacking. Instead, he gripped his sword tightly with both hands and injected spiritual energy into it. It was as if he was accumulating energy and preparing to cast a spell. The shadow of the Golden Rock was finally formed. On the other side, Lei Wudao's long sword was also flashing with dazzling lightning. Wang Daoyuan immediately released 100 feather blades towards Lei Wudao. Lei Wudao didn't dodge. The sword in his hand shone brightly, and the shadow of a blue rock flew out from the sword. Wang Daoyuan recognized this Ping Phantom. It was the legendary high-rank demonic beast Lei Peng. It possessed the bloodline of the divine beast golden-winged Ping and was proficient in using thunder techniques. As soon as the Lei Ping Phantom was formed, it flapped its wings and attacked the feather blades released by the golden rock. One by one, the feather blades dissipated under the attack of the Lei Ping Phantom. The Lei Ping Phantom also became dimmer and dimmer. It was clearly not enough to break all the feather blades. Lei Wudao didn't expect the Lei Ping Phantom to be of much use. He only wanted to buy time for himself to dodge the attacks. After the Lei Ping Phantom shattered more than 10 feather blades, it brazenly self-destructed. More than 20 feather blades were directly shattered by the impact. The other feather blades were affected by the impact, and the direction of their attack was deviated. In the end, less than 10 feather blades hit Lei Wudao. The longsword in Lei Wudao's hand flashed, forming a blue longsword phantom that was more than 10 feet long. He waved the longsword phantom, shattering all the incoming feather blades. The longsword phantom also shattered. Lei Wudao blocked the 100 feather blades unscathed. There was a burst of cheers from the cruel Sun Palace. The gloominess of Wang Daoyuan defeating 5 people by himself was swept away. Their morale was high. Wang Daoyuan once again shot out 100 feather blades. At the same time, Lei Wudao's longsword was stabbed into the ground. The lightning attribute's spiritual energy on the sword body surged and quickly condensed into a shield. After that, he continued to inject spiritual energy into the longsword in his hand. Soon the 100 feather blades collided with the shield. The lightning shield was instantly broken and more than 30 feather blades were destroyed. Then he slashed out with the longsword in his hand. The lightning attribute's spiritual energy condensed into a huge blue wave, rolling towards the feather blades. The remaining 60 or so feather blades hit the huge wave. Most of the feather blades were blocked by the huge wave. The huge wave gradually dimmed and finally disappeared. The remaining 10 or so feather blades hit Lei Wudao's body. He also had a defensive spiritual armor on his body, which reduced the power of the feather blades by more than half. The feather blades hit his body but only caused some superficial wounds. The cultivators of the cruel Sun Palace cheered again. Although Lei Wudao was at a disadvantage, he did not use any tricks to block the 100 feather blades and was not seriously injured. This showed that Wang Daoyuan's golden rock phantom was not unstoppable. Wang Daoyuan once again released 100 feather blades. Lei Wudao used the lightning attribute escape technique. He did not dodge to the sides, but retreated to delay the attack of the feather blades. At the same time, the long sword in his hand constantly split into sword phantoms, surrounding his body. These sword phantoms were not the same as the sword phantoms condensed by the 10,000 sword art. The sword phantoms condensed by the 10,000 sword art only had a vague shape. But the sword phantoms condensed by Lei Wudao were very real. Even the patterns on the swords could be seen clearly. The strangest thing was that these sword phantoms were all different and each one looked extraordinary. In the end, Lei Wudao condensed 10 swords. Wang Daoyuan knew from the memories of Li Qingxuan that Lei Wudao's move was a very famous sword technique, the shadow sword technique. The sword phantoms he condensed were not ordinary swords, but the natal magic weapon of an ancient sword cultivator. The founder of the shadow sword technique was an ancient sword cultivator. He imitated the power of legendary swords based on what he saw with his own eyes and created the shadow sword technique. Legend had it that when the shadow sword technique was cultivated to the extreme, it could resonate with the ancient sword and carry the power of the ancient sword. These sword phantoms imitated the ancient sword. As for how much power they could unleash, it depended on how deep the user's understanding of the sword was. Lei Wudao used the sword phantoms to block in front of him. The 100 feather blades were directly shattered by the sword qi, and these sword phantoms only dimmed a little. Following that, Lei Wudao brought all of the ancient sword phantoms and attacked Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan only shot out 100 feather blades each time. It was to give everyone a misconception, to make them think that he could only shoot out 100 feather blades at most. Lei Wudao indeed fell for it and took the initiative to close in and attack. 100 feather blades were indeed unable to break all of the ancient sword phantoms. Lei Wudao rushed to a place just 200 feet away from him. He instantly released the remaining 700 feather blades. The spectating crowd and Lei Wudao were all stunned with fright. Wang Daoyuan being able to release all of the feather blades at once clearly exceeded everyone's expectations. This was not over yet. After releasing all of the feather blades, The golden rock phantoms also flew towards Lei Wudao. At this distance he could not dodge at all. He could only brace himself and receive this blow. In a blink of an eye, the feather blades collided with the ancient sword phantoms. One had to admit that Lei Wudao's shadow sword technique was extremely powerful. The 700 feather blades only barely managed to break all of the ancient sword phantoms. The feather blades were all shattered too. Up until this point, the two people's collision this time could be said to be a draw. But the golden rock phantoms were not to be trifled with either. He directly pounced towards Lei Wudao. Lei Wudao did not have time to cast defensive spells at all. He could only cast an escape technique wanting to dodge the attack. But his speed could not shake off the golden rock phantoms at all. The eagle claw grabbed his long sword. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual energy was already completely exhausted at this time. He used divine sense to control the golden rock phantoms to self-destruct. The golden rock phantoms turned into a golden rain that filled the sky. The long sword in Lei Wudao's hand was blown into 3 pieces. The defensive spirit armor on his body was also blown into tatters. Lei Wudao was blown more than 300 feet away. This kid even tempered his body and was not directly killed. But his injuries were absolutely not light either. After he landed, he immediately got up and used Thunder Attribute's spiritual energy to condense a thunder ball. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual energy was exhausted at this time. Even if he drank spiritual wine to recover spiritual energy, it was also too late. Anyway, he did not plan on winning. Being able to deal with serious injuries was not a loss. He shouted decisively, "I admit defeat." Chapter 260. After Wang Daoyuan admitted defeat, Lei Wudao dispersed the lightning ball and sat on the ground, vomiting a few mouthfuls of blood. The people from the Crescent Sun Palace had strange expressions. As the winner, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. As the loser, the Netherworld sect cheered when they saw Lei Wudao heavily injured. Wang Daoyuan took out a jar of spirit peach dew and drank it in one gulp. His spiritual energy quickly recovered. He cupped his hands towards Lei Wudao and said, "Lei Daoyu's shadow sword art is indeed powerful. In the future, it won't be a problem for you to resonate with ancient swords. I admire you." Then he turned and walked out of the arena. As soon as he walked to the edge of the arena, Luo Hongming welcomed him with a face full of joy. He cupped his hands and said, "Dao, you fought beautifully. The sect master and the elders are very satisfied. The sect master will personally commend Daoyu's contribution. Please follow me." Wang Daoyuan followed behind Luo Hongming and came to a tall palace-like building. This building only had the appearance of a palace and the decorations were very simple. It should have been built temporarily. Luo Hongming led the way with Wang Daoyuan following behind. They walked into the palace. When they entered the main hall, they saw the sect master of the Netherworld sect sitting on the main seat with more than 20 Purple Mansion sect elders on both sides. Luo Hongming stepped forward and reported, "Sect master, the hero of this battle, Wang Daoyuan, has arrived." Wang Daoyuan bowed deeply and said, "Junior Wang Daoyuan greets the sect master and the elders." Luo Zhiyo smiled and said, "No need for formalities. I didn't expect Yuchuan Daoyu's descendant to be such a character. With a 5th-level foundation establishment cultivation, you defeated 3 6th-level foundation establishment disciples of the Crescent Sun Palace and seriously injured the top genius of the Crescent Sun Palace, Lei Wudao. You will be rewarded with 2 foundation establishment pills for pill, artifact and talisman array inheritances, and 100,000 spirit stones." One of the elders bowed and said, "Yes." Wang Daoyuan also bowed and said, "Thank you for the reward, sect master." Luo Zhiyo waved his hand and said with a smile, "No need to be so courteous. You've made a great contribution, so these rewards are what you deserve. In addition, I have something to ask my little friend. What is the origin of your golden rock shadow? The ancient books collected by the Underworld sect for thousands of years have never mentioned this magic." Being shameless was the style of the ghost sect. Wang Daoyuan had expected this move. Previously, when he used the golden rock wrestling dragon technique after using the feather blades, he did not let the golden rock shadow grow new feathers, hiding part of its ability. Wang Daoyuan respectfully replied, "Sect master, I obtained this technique from killing a cultivator who stole treasures many years ago. According to the records of the spell, this spell was created by a golden core senior tens of thousands of years ago. Originally there were other changes, but later on they were all incomplete. The only thing left was the golden rock's shadow and the method of using the golden feather to attack. Furthermore, the feather attack technique was also incomplete. It seemed like it had been edited and supplemented. I've painstakingly cultivated for dozens of years, but I've only condensed 1,000 feathers at most. If Sect Master needs it, I'm willing to offer this technique to you. After saying that, he took out a jade slip. This jade slip was engraved by his clone. In order to prevent others from recognizing that this was a spell created by perfected Yuanying, he had also deleted some of its contents. This spell was created by a Yuanying cultivator. To repair it was not something a foundation establishment cultivator like him could do. Even a golden core cultivator would find it difficult to do so. However, he had cultivated this spell for dozens of years and had a deep understanding of it. Deleting a part of the important contents of the spell did not affect its basic functions, but at the same time, increased the difficulty of cultivation and lowered its power. Furthermore, this was a modified version of the Golden Rock Wrestling Dragon technique. After the Golden Rock's shadow finished using the feather blades, it could no longer condense feathers and could only rely on physical combat. He had also changed perfected Monarch Golden Rock's personal situation, fabricating a golden core cultivator who did not even have a real name. After hearing that it was a legacy of a golden core cultivator, Luo Jiuyo's interest was greatly reduced. However, the spells of other golden core cultivators were still very meaningful. There were several Zifu disciples in the hall who were also very interested in this spell. He took out a jade slip and said, "I have some use for this spell of yours, so I'll take it. Of course, I can't let you suffer a loss. I have a golden core spell here that I discovered when exploring the cave of an ancient cultivator in my early years. This is a combination spell of the 5 elements. It just so happens that you also have 5 spiritual roots, so it's very suitable for you. I'll use this combination spell in exchange for your golden rock spell." After saying that, the jade slip in Wang Daoyuan's hand flew into Luo Jiuyo's hand. The jade slip in Luo Jiuyo's hand flew out and landed in Wang Daoyuan's hand. Wang Daoyuan bowed and said, "Thank you for the reward, Sect Master." At this moment, a Zifu disciple elder brought a peak chi refinement cultivator into the hall. The Zifu disciple cupped his hands and said, "Reporting to Sect Master, Wang Daolong is here." Wang Daolong hurriedly bowed to the Sect Master and the other elders. Luo Jiuyo smiled and said, "No need to be so polite. Daolong, this time your 7th brother Wang Daoyuan has made a great contribution. In order to reward the Wang family, the sect will give you the qualification to build your foundation. In addition, after you succeed in building your foundation, you can become Elder Luo Xuanming's disciple." A Zifu disciple elder stood up and cupped his hands towards Luo Jiuyo. It was Elder Luo Xianming. Wang Daolong had just turned 70 years old and already had no hope of building his foundation. He didn't expect that a foundation establishment qualification would fall from the sky and he could even become the disciple of a Zifu disciple elder. Moreover, this elder was a junior of the sect master's family. Wang Daolong was extremely grateful and kowtowed again and again. Elder Luo Xianming took Wang Daolong away and prepared to build his foundation. After the matter of the reward was settled, Wang Daoyuan left the hall. Although he was Wang Daolong's brother, he wasn't a cultivator of the Netherworld sect. It wasn't appropriate for him to go and guard. The duel between the two sides hadn't ended, so it wasn't convenient for him to leave. He could only go to the duel arena to watch the show. There would be a Zifu disciple duel later and he could feel the strength of a Zifu disciple. The battle of the mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators wasn't over yet, but the Netherworld sect had already gained the upper hand. Wang Daoyuan defeated 3 experts of the Crescent Sun Palace and heavily injured Lei Wudao. The Netherworld sect didn't lose a single one of their main forces. After Lei Wudao was injured, a cultivator from the Netherworld sect went up and defeated Lei Wudao. The Crescent Sun Palace didn't have enough experts and in the end, the Netherworld sect won the battle of the mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators. In the battle of the late-stage foundation establishment cultivators, the Netherworld sect went all out. More than 60% of the participating cultivators were from the Netherworld sect. However, the Netherworld sect's foundation establishment cultivators weren't young. They were at least 200 years old. They probably didn't have enough talent and had no hope of establishing a Violet Palace realm. Losing a few of them wouldn't hurt the sect's foundation. These people were more likely Qingchuan. Although they had exhausted their cultivation potential, they were still at the peak of the foundation establishment realm and their battle strength wasn't weak. It was the same for the Crescent Sun Palace. Most of their cultivators were very old. Many of the foundation establishment cultivators who didn't participate in the battle also ran to the side of the arena to watch the battle. Wang Daoyuan was no exception. These veteran foundation establishment cultivators had rich battle experience. Watching them battle was truly an eye-opener. Usually, even an ordinary second-grade dermic art could be used to great effect. Moreover, these people had lived for nearly 200 years and had fought for the sect countless times. To be able to survive until now, they were all old foxes. All kinds of dermic arts flew back and forth in the arena, but there wasn't a single serious injury on either side, let alone death. In the end, the Netherworld sect won with a slight advantage and took another sixth of the Spirit Stone mine. Chapter 261. And then the Zifu disciples entered the arena. This was Wang Daoyuan's first time seeing Zifu disciples battle. Unlike foundation establishment cultivators, Violet Palace realm cultivators focused more on the use of their spiritual sense. After a cultivator established their Violet Palace, their soul would undergo a qualitative change and become a divine soul. Their spiritual sense would also undergo a qualitative change. They could use their spiritual sense to control magical techniques and change the direction of their attacks. They could even use their spiritual sense to interfere with their opponent's magical techniques and magic treasures. Under the control of their spiritual sense, many powerful magical techniques that were easy to dodge could be used. In the early Violet Palace realm battles, all the cultivators the Netherworld sect sent out were foreign cultivators. In terms of inheritances, these foreign cultivators were much weaker than the native cultivators. They were also at a disadvantage when compared to the cultivators of the Savage Sun Palace. The Netherworld sect was quickly defeated. They had already fought 4 battles and each side had won 2. The Netherworld sect had invested heavily in the Middle Violet Palace realm battles. They had sent out 3 Violet Palace realm cultivators, all of whom were native cultivators. Zhou Xian was one of them. 40 years ago, when Shi Zhenbong was fighting over the foundation establishment pill, Zhou Xian wasn't able to quickly defeat Shi Zhenbong. Wang Daoyuan had always thought that Zhou Xian was relatively weak amongst Violet Palace realm cultivators. But he didn't expect that he would shine in this battle and defeat 2 of the Savage Sun Palace's mid-Violet Palace realm experts. The Netherworld sect had also won another battle and obtained half of the Spirit Stone mine. In the final battle between late Violet Palace realm cultivators, both sides had sent out peak Violet Palace realm cultivators. The Netherworld sect had sent out their leader Elder Jean. It had to be said that the Netherworld sect's sect master's move was quite brilliant. If he won, then everyone would be happy. But if he lost, then Elder Jin's prestige would be damaged and he would be able to suppress the momentum of the foreign cultivators. Elder Jean was worthy of being called the #1 cultivator under the Golden Core stage of the Netherworld sect. His battle prowess wasn't weak. After defeating one opponent, he also injured the second. Due to his outstanding performance, the Netherworld sect had won. However, Elder Jean didn't have it easy either. He had suffered heavy injuries and wouldn't be able to recover without 50 to 60 years of recuperation. As a result, his chances of breaking through to the Golden Core stage were very slim. Elder Jean wasn't young either. He should be over 400 years old and should only have 70 to 80 years of life left. He would need 50 to 60 years of recuperation. After his injuries were completely healed, he wouldn't have much time left. At that time, he could only make hasty preparations and forcefully break through. The success rate was extremely low. The Netherworld sect had obtained 2/3 of the Spirit Stone mine, which was a great profit. They had never intended to take over the entire Spirit Stone mine in the first place. Back then, they had been schemed against by the 2 great sects in Guyan Valley. Their foundation establishment cultivators had suffered heavy losses, and there was even a gap in their generation. In the past 40 years, they had cultivated a group of foundation building cultivators with great difficulty, and the Netherworld sect did not dare to risk their lives with them. The original plan was to give up on the 3 duels to reduce the losses of the sect's cultivators. He didn't expect that Wang Daoyuan would be among the cannon fodder of his family, who helped the ghost sect win the duel in the middle stage of building foundation. The Netherworld sect used a large number of family cultivators to prevent the subsidiary forces from becoming too big, while also reducing the strength of the cruel Sun Palace, and at the same time suppressing the external forces in the sect. To the native faction, this battle could be said to be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. After all the duels were over, the rest of the division of output and development were the top management of the ghost sect. It had nothing to do with Wang Daoyuan and other family cultivators. The family cultivators who had participated in the battle were brought back by the various elders. Wang Daoyuan and the others were also brought back to Clear Glass City by Yang Yong. In this duel, there were also casualties among the Foundation establishment cultivators in the northern part of Clear Glass City. 3 of them did not return. In a little more than a day, everyone arrived at Clear Glass City and returned to their own families. Half a month after Wang Daoyuan and Wang Daoxing returned to Jade Spring Peak, Yang Yong brought a Ghost Sect Foundation establishment cultivator to Jade Spring Peak. A Zifu disciple came to visit, and the 2 grand elders of the Wang family also came out to welcome them, leading the 3 into the hall. Yang Yong smiled. Congratulations to the Wang family. Daoyuan has done a great service this time. The sect master has personally rewarded the Wang family with 2 foundation establishment pills, 1 grade 3 pill, 1 artifact and 1 talisman array inheritance, in addition to 100,000 spirit stones. After saying this, the foundation establishment cultivator who came with him handed a storage pouch to Wang Shui, saying, "The sect master's rewards are all here. Patriarch Wang, please check them in person." Wang Shui opened the storage pouch to take a look. Inside there were 4 jade slips, 2 jade boxes and 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones. He checked the 2 jade boxes and the 4 jade slips, saying, "There's no problem with the items. Thank you, Senior Marshal Brother." The Ghost Sect Foundation establishment cultivator waved his hand, saying, "No need to be so polite. Daolong and I are fellow disciples of the same sect, so we're also a family. Junior Marshal Brother asked me to tell Dao Yu of the Wang family that he used 2 foundation establishment pills and has successfully entered foundation establishment. Please don't worry about Dao Yu." Yang Yong congratulated. Daolong has entered foundation establishment and has also entered Luo Xinming and Daoyu's tutelage. The Wang family also has the duty of raising Clear River carps, so now you can be considered a direct descendant of the Ghost Sect. As long as someone can establish a Zifu in the future, the Wang family's status won't be inferior to my Yang family's. In the future our 2 families must get closer. The 2 Grand Supreme Elders accompanied him for a while, and after an hour he left Jade Spring Peak with the Ghost Sect Foundation establishment cultivator. After sending off the 2 people, Wang Daoyuan returned to his own Immortal's Cave. He opened the Immortal's Cave's restriction and began to cultivate the 5 elements magic art that he exchanged. Luo Jiuyo was willing to take it out to exchange with Wang Daoyuan, so this thing definitely couldn't be considered a high-level magic art among Golden Core cultivators. But then again, no matter how trashy a magic art created by a Golden Core cultivator was, it was still enough to be used as a trump card for a foundation establishment cultivator. His meteor fall technique was only created by a Zifu realm cultivator, and it could be considered a killing move against the majority of cultivators of the same level. This magic art was called the 5 Elements Devil Suppression Seal, and it was formed by the combination of 5 elements magic arts. The power of each magic art wasn't outstanding when used alone, but the 5 magic arts could be combined to form a large illusory seal. This large illusory seal could be used to attack, defend, and suppress. Its power was considered average among 4th-rank magic arts, but its attack speed wasn't very good, so it was very easy to dodge. The 5 magic arts were the White Tiger Blade, the Grey Dragon Pearl, the Black Tortoise Shield, the Vermilion Bird Fan, and the Kirin Seal. When used, spirit energy would condense into illusory images. The White Tiger Blade mainly attacked, the Black Tortoise Shield defended, and the Vermilion Bird Fan controlled fire. The Grey Dragon Pearl could extract the enemy's life force and be used to heal injuries. The Kirin Seal was both offensive and defensive, and it also had some suppressive effects. The fusion of the 5 elements used the Kirin Seal as the core. With Wang Daoyuan's current strength, he couldn't use the 5 elements devil suppression seal at all. The creator of this cultivation technique only wanted to bring out the advantages of the 5 elements, which was why he created such a combination magic art. Moreover, this magic art clearly hadn't been improved and it had many flaws. For example, the casting speed was too slow. Even if a single magic art was cultivated to its peak, it would still take 3 breaths to cast it. Its power was also very average. With Wang Daoyuan's current cultivation, the power of the White Tiger Blade was only about 15 to 16 times that of a mid-grade level 2 Golden Saber Talisman. In 3 breaths of time, it could only produce this much lethality. Using the meteor fall technique, he could shoot out 5 flaming meteors in 3 breaths of time. The direct lethality was 50 times that of a mid-grade level 2 Golden Saber Talisman. If it wasn't for the fact that it could be combined into the 5 elements devil suppression seal, this thing wouldn't even be as good as the meteor fall technique. However, there was a lot of room for improvement in this magic art, especially when combined with his special spirit energy. The Grey Dragon Pearl combined with the Wood Attribute Spirit Energy had an extremely strong ability to heal and deprive the enemy of their life force. The Kirin Seal combined with the corrosive effect of the Earth Attribute Spirit Energy caused damage to the enemy while suppressing. The Black Tortoise Shield and the Gui Water Death Flame didn't match and didn't work together. On the other hand, the Vermilion Bird Fan's ability to control fire was very valuable. If it could be improved, it could control different attributes of spirit fire, which would be very valuable. At present, the White Tiger Blade didn't seem to have any use at all. Chapter 262. Although this combination spell had great potential for improvement, it was barely enough to be called a Golden Core spell for now. As for improvement, he could forget about it before he reached the Violet Palace realm. The only thing of greater value now was the Tsong Dragon Pearl. The rejuvenation spell he used now was not strong enough to heal injuries. After all, the rejuvenation spell was only a very common level 2 spell. However, the Tsong Dragon Pearl could be used to deprive the enemy of life force and use it to heal himself. Other things aside, the healing effect was at least much stronger than the rejuvenation spell. With this spell, he could brazenly use the characteristics of Wood Attribute Spiritual Energy in the future. Everything could be attributed to the Tsong Dragon Pearl. Of the other 4 spells, only the Kirin Seal was useful and could be cultivated. As for the other 3 spells, he would consider whether to cultivate them after he reached the Violet Palace realm and made some improvements. The Tsong Dragon Pearl was not difficult to cultivate. He got the hang of it in a day. He condensed the image of a dark green bead about 5 to 6 inches in diameter. The bead had azure dragon patterns on it. He took out a ferocious boar from the space and used the Tsong Dragon Pearl to extract something like a white mist from it. After 10 breaths, the ferocious boar showed signs of weakness. The Tsong Dragon Pearl shone with a dazzling green light. He put the ferocious boar into the space of the spirit pearl and took out another ferocious boar. He made a deep wound on its body. Then he activated the Tsong Dragon Pearl, which emitted a dark green light and shone it on the wound. In just 3 breaths, the wound on the ferocious boar was completely healed. Moreover, the whole boar was very energetic. The ferocious boar in the space of the spirit pearl that had its life force extracted started to wither. However, it slowly recovered after a few days and did not leave any permanent damage. It seemed that these ferocious boars could be used as a source of life force for healing. Even if the Tsong Dragon Pearl did not absorb life force, the dark green light it emitted could also be used for healing. Although the effect was much weaker, it was still much stronger than the rejuvenation spell. After cultivating this spell, Wang Daoyuan continued to concentrate on improving his cultivation as soon as possible. Currently, the Underworld sect and the Crescent Sun Palace had reached an agreement. The 3 major sects were preparing to attack the remnants of the Zhao clan north of the mountain. The biggest obstacle was the half-demon tribes in the north of the mountains. Shanbei had always been the territory of demons and half-demons. If the 3 sects wanted to go to Shanbei to fight the Beiyuan sword sect, it would be like fighting in someone else's home. As long as there was still a shred of bravery left in them, they would not agree. If the 3 sects wanted the Yao and half-Yao to agree, they would have to either beat them into submission or pay a huge price. No one knew how long it would take to deal with the demons and half-demons. Wang Daoyuan was not worried about participating in the battle against the Beiyuan sword sect. On the surface, the Beiyuan sword sect was not very strong. He was worried that the Green Willow continent would make a move. Once the Green Willow continent joined the war, the Wang family would be one of the first families to be affected. The matter of moving the clansmen into the Five Elements Mystery Realm could not be delayed any longer. He had consumed most of the Earth Vein Spirit Milk to resist the Yin Qi when he was collecting the Gui Water Nether Flame and digging the tunnel. Currently he only had 7 drops left. Now if they wanted to take down Fallen Dragon Ridge as soon as possible, they would have to rely on the Earth Vein Spiritual Milk. Using up all 7 drops of Earth Vein Spirit Essence was enough for him to break through to the 7th level of Foundation Establishment. The only problem was that the Fire Attribute Spiritual Energy in the Earth Vein Spirit Milk needed to be neutralized with Yin Qi. His Water Attribute Spiritual Energy had the Yin Qi of the Gui Water Nether Flame. It could be used to neutralize the Fire Attribute of the Earth Vein Spirit Milk, but it would take a long time. Wang Daoyuan took out 1/10 of a drop of Earth Vein Spirit Milk and prepared to consume it. Before consuming it, he converted all the spiritual energy in his body into Water Attribute Spiritual Energy and used the Water Attribute Spiritual Energy seed to refine it a second time. After consuming the Earth Vein Spirit Milk, he immediately circulated his cultivation technique to refine it. He then used the Water Attribute Spiritual Energy to neutralize the Fire Attribute within. The Water Attribute Spiritual Energy in his body could barely neutralize the Fire Attribute of the Earth Vein Spirit Milk. In order to avoid damage to his meridians and dantian, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to refine it continuously. Every month he would only refine 1/10 of a drop of Earth Vein Spirit Milk. The rest of the time he would use it to condense his true yuan and recover his physical body. 5 years later, Wang Daoyuan's cultivation had reached the pinnacle of the 6th stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, and he could break through to the 7th stage at any time. There was only a drop of Earth Vein Spirit Milk left. He initially wanted to rely on the last drop of Earth Vein Spirit Milk to break through to the 7th stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, but he had to leave his seclusion early because of his family's matters. His 5th great-uncle Wang Xian had a trace of comprehension towards the Violet Palace realm. The opportunity to break through to the Violet Palace realm had appeared, and he was preparing to establish his Violet Palace. Although breaking through to the Violet Palace realm wasn't life-threatening, his 5th great-uncle would break the balance in the northern region if he could successfully establish his Violet Palace realm. At this time not even the Yang clan could be trusted, not to mention the Liang clan. The Netherworld sect and the Savage Sun Palace had reached an agreement, so there was no need for too many people to be stationed at the border. The Liang clan's ancestor Liang had already returned to the Azure Sky Peak. If news of Wang Xian breaking through to the Violet Palace realm spread out, Liang might come to cause trouble. The Jade Spring Peak's defensive array was a 3rd-grade Profound Tortoise array. Liang was a mid-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to block the array. However, the array also needed someone to control it. Only with someone presiding over the array would it be able to unleash its true power. The most suitable person to control the array was the 12th uncle, who was already in the 7th stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. Next was the great-grandfather, who was in the 9th stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. However, their cultivation technique was the same as the patriarch's, the overturned sea art. If the patriarch had an accident during his breakthrough, it would be more convenient for them to help. Therefore they had to protect the patriarch. The Wang clan had 8 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators, and Aunt Jio was also of the water attribute. However, their cultivation was too low. They had just reached the 3rd stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, so it was difficult for them to control the Black Tortoise array. Therefore the only one who could control the Black Tortoise array was Wang Daoyuan. Although he was only in the 6th stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, his spiritual energy was robust and his spiritual sense was powerful. Therefore he could fully unleash the power of the Black Tortoise array. Therefore the 12th uncle Wang Shui informed him to leave seclusion to protect the patriarch. When Wang Daoyuan arrived at the entrance of the cave residence of the 5th great-uncle, the great-grandfather and the 12th uncle were already waiting there. However, there were no fluctuations of spiritual energy or spiritual sense in the cave residence. Obviously, the breakthrough had not officially begun. He asked the 12th uncle, "What's the situation now?" The 12th uncle replied, "5th uncle has some comprehension of the Purple Mansion realm, and the opportunity to open the Purple Mansion has appeared. However, his preparations are still lacking. The success rate of breaking through now is not high. Now, fifth uncle is taking the soul strengthening pill and the body accumulation pill to improve his soul cultivation and physical strength. However, the comprehension is fleeting. It may be too late to improve his soul cultivation and physical strength now. Wang Daoyuan took out a storage bag and said with a smile, I still have some spiritual items that can improve the spiritual sense and physical strength. They are much stronger than the soul strengthening pill and the body accumulation pill. Maybe there is some hope. Wang Shui asked, what spiritual items? Wang Daoyuan opened the storage bag and said, 20 dark jade lotus seeds and 100 dragon heart fruits. The voice of the fifth great uncle came out from the cave residence. With these two things, maybe there is still hope. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and closed the restriction of the cave residence. He opened the door and entered. He saw the fifth great uncle sitting cross-legged on a futon with his eyes closed. He handed the storage bag to the fifth great uncle and said, I have a spell that is also good for strengthening the body. Do you want to try it? He was talking about the Azure Dragon Pearl. The vitality provided by the Azure Dragon Pearl had some auxiliary effect on strengthening the body. The fifth great uncle nodded and did not speak. Chapter 263. Afterward, Wang Daoyuan used the excuse of preparing spells to return to the cave residence and used the Azure Dragon Pearl to extract the life force of the ferocious blood boars. Not only were these guys powerful, but they were also suitable for extracting essence blood, making grade 2 spirit ink and refining beast blood pills. Their life force was so strong that the Azure Dragon Pearl was full after the 3 ferocious blood boars were drained. It seemed that the strength of the body and blood were closely related to life force. He didn't put away the Azure Dragon Pearl and ran directly to his fifth granduncle's cave residence. Wang Xian ate the dragon heart fruit and used its medicinal power to strengthen his body. Wang Daoyuan also used the Azure Dragon Pearl to release a dark green light that illuminated his fifth granduncle's body. With both internal and external, Wang Xian's physical strength improved significantly. After refining 20 or so dragon heart fruits, the life force in the Azure Dragon Pearl was almost depleted. He stopped refining and waved to Wang Daoyuan. My body is just barely enough. No need to use spells. With that, he ate a black jade lotus seed and began refining it. Wang Daoyuan didn't use the Azure Dragon Pearl anymore. He didn't have any spells to strengthen his soul, so there was no point in staying in the cave residence. Half a day later, Wang Xian's voice came from the cave residence. My soul has just barely reached the minimum level. I can try to open the Violet Palace. Wang Shui ordered, Daoyuan, go activate the black tortoise repelling water formation and guard the core. Wang Daoyuan acknowledged and ran to the ancestral shrine. The core of the black tortoise repelling water formation was in the ancestral shrine. Activating and controlling the formation required going through the core. Taigong also came to the ancestral shrine. He formed a complicated hand seal with both hands and hit the ancestral tablet of Wang Qingzu. The ancestral tablet flickered with light. Then there was a sound from under the altar table and a hole appeared. Taigong went into the hole under the altar table. After 5 minutes he came out with a piece of purple wood. He smiled at Wang Daoyuan and said, the ancestor didn't leave many good things behind. The purple cloud wood core is gone, and only this piece of 1,000-year-old purple cloud wood is left. Although its effects couldn't be compared to the purple cloud wood core, it was still somewhat useful. This is the only thing that's useful for establishing the Violet Palace realm. In the future, when you and Shui establish the Violet Palace realm, the clan won't be able to help you. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, it doesn't matter. After we deal with Fallen Dragon Ridge, I will go and trick one. Taigong left the ancestral temple. Wang Daoyuan went to the array eye and controlled the core of the array to activate it. The entire Jade Spring Peak was enveloped in a layer of aqua blue light barrier. A huge shadow of a black tortoise appeared above the light shield. Outside Jade Spring Peak, the cultivators on the surface of the water were alarmed by the black tortoise's image. Some foundation building loose cultivators also arrived outside Jade Spring Peak. An elderly cultivator among them asked curiously, what is this Wang clan doing now? Another rogue cultivator continued, I heard that Wang Daoyuan of the Wang clan made great contributions to the Netherworld sect. The Lord of the Netherworld sect personally rewarded the Wang family with 2 foundation building elixirs. It might be that someone in the Wang family had reached the foundation building realm. This matter also happened before. More than 10 years ago, 3 people of the Wang clan reached foundation establishment on the same day. At that time they activated the Great Protective Mountain Formation. Speaking of which, this Wang clan is really wasteful. They already have 8 foundation establishment cultivators. I heard that one of their clansmen who joined the Netherworld sect reached foundation establishment as well. Now that they have a foundation establishment pill, they should keep it for future generations. Why is there another person who wants to establish his foundation? Another person said, who cares? They have the ability to obtain a foundation establishment pill. Even if they throw it away, it has nothing to do with us. Let's just watch the show. At this time, Wang Xian's immortal cave was very quiet. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of spiritual power. This situation lasted for a day. Wang Daoyuan even thought that his 5th granduncle had failed in his breakthrough. Suddenly, a powerful spiritual sense fluctuation spread throughout the entire Jade Spring Peak. Wang Xian's immortal cave emitted a dazzling purple light. Even the stone walls of the immortal cave couldn't block it in the slightest. The meridians between the Sea of Consciousness and Dantian had all been opened, and the Violet Palace had begun to be established. At this point it could be said that he had already succeeded in half. As long as there was enough pure yin and pure yang qi in his soul and body, as well as the purple qi in the 1,000-year-old purple cloud wood, establishing the Violet Palace was a sure thing. A quarter of an hour later, a mid-grade 2nd-rank demonic bird rushed towards the Jade Spring Peak. Wang Daoyuan immediately controlled the black tortoise's projection to attack the demonic bird. The black tortoise was a tortoise with a black snake coiled on its back. Under Wang Daoyuan's control, the black snake suddenly flew out and bit the demonic bird, entangling it. The demonic bird quickly stopped struggling and fell outside the Jade Spring Peak. Wang Daoyuan used the water spiritual power in the Great Formation to condense 4 large words above the Jade Spring Peak. Death to trespassers. Not long after, an old man wearing a green robe appeared outside the mountain. The outline of a mountain peak was embroidered on his green robe. He shouted, Liang Liang of the Clear Sky Peaks, Liang family has come to pay a visit. Wang family, please remove the Great Formation and let this old man in. Even a dog could see that this old thing was clearly here to cause trouble. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't believe his nonsense. There were many loose cultivators in the surroundings, and they naturally knew Liang Liang's purpose. However, they all had the mentality of watching a good show and didn't mind the matter blowing up. Using the spiritual power in the Great Formation, he wrote in the air, Jade Spring Peak is honored by Elder Liang's visit. However, it is inconvenient for the Wang family to receive guests. I hope Elder Liang will be magnanimous enough to forgive us. Seeing these words, Liang Liang said unhappily, the Wang family is so ostentatious. This old man has come to pay a visit as the Purple Palace Elder of the Netherworld sect. You actually dare to use the Great Formation to block this elder outside the mountain gate. Is the Wang family looking down on the Netherworld sect? Hearing Liang Liang's words, Wang Daoyuan wasn't worried. Instead, he was happy. If this old guy wanted to talk big, then he wasn't afraid. He could accompany him for a day. Relying on his eloquence, he could flatter him for a day and it wouldn't be repeated. However, in order to prevent 5th granduncle from being disturbed, he transmitted his voice to Wang Shui. 12th uncle, use water to create 2 layers of protective shields and surround 5th granduncle's cave residence. Remember, the protective shields must be made of real water. You can't use water spiritual power. Also, there must be a gap between the 2 water shields. Wang Shui knew that he wouldn't speak without thinking, so he immediately did as he was told. Now that Elder Jean had yet to recover from his serious injuries and the Netherworld sect's upper echelons were intentionally suppressing the foreign sect, Liang Liang and the other foreign sect elders didn't dare to be as arrogant as before. With Liang Liang's courage, the possibility of him directly using magic or divine sense to attack the Great Formation wasn't high. However, it was still very possible for him to hide a sound wave attack in his voice and interfere with 5th granduncle's establishment of the Purple Palace. The 2 water shields were formed precisely to guard against Liang Liang's move. He continued to use water spiritual power to condense words and chat with Liang Liang. In order to stall for time, he even deliberately slowed down the speed of condensing words. He wrote, the Wang clan is merely a foundation establishment clan. How could they dare to look down on an elder of the Netherworld sect, let alone look down on the Netherworld sect? It's just that the Wang clan has some inconveniences. I hope Elder Liang can forgive us. Liang angrily said, What inconveniences? That's not a reason to look down on an elder of the Netherworld sect. Wang Daoyuan continued to write, I hope Elder Liang can forgive us. We'll definitely pay you a visit to make amends in the future. Liang coldly snorted and angrily roared, Immediately open the Great Formation and welcome me. Otherwise you'll have to bear the consequences. This angry roar was mixed with a sound wave attack. However, Liang also had a sense of propriety. This sound wave attack would only disturb a cultivator's state of mind and wouldn't cause any casualties. Moreover, the target of this sound wave attack was precisely the place where the purple light was emitted. The other people on Jade's Spring Peak weren't affected much. Seeing that Liang had shed all pretense of cordiality, Wang Daoyuan no longer feigned civility. He condensed words and replied, The Wang clan is under the jurisdiction of Elder Yang, the guardian of Clear Glass Market. Elder Liang doesn't have the authority to mobilize our Wang clan's cultivators. Since Elder Liang has come with the status of an elder of the Netherworld sect, I wonder which senior ordered you to force our Wang clan to open the Great Formation. Chapter 264. Wang Daoyuan spoke more tactfully. To put it bluntly, he said, Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to order me around? Liang had lived for more than 400 years and was only a few years away from the end of his lifespan. What hadn't he seen before? How could he not understand the meaning of these words? He said angrily, It seems Wang clan really doesn't care about Netherworld sect. I'm a dignified Zifu elder, yet I still need to follow someone else's orders to enter Jade's Spring Peak. Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't hold back. He continued to condense words. My Wang clan has a cultivator who opens Zifu, so I activated the Great Protective Formation. Anyone who knows a little about human affairs should know to avoid it. Elder Liang, you came here and ordered me to close the Great Protective Formation. Could it be that you want to interrupt my Wang clan's cultivator from opening Zifu? Could it be that the rumor is true? Elder Liang wants to exterminate my Wang clan to avenge someone? After shedding all pretense of cordiality, Liang couldn't do anything about it. Not to mention that the Netherworld sect's external forces were in a bit of a slump. Even when the external forces were at their peak, no one dared to openly disturb the cultivators of the Netherworld sect's subordinate forces from breaking through. If they did, even a Zifu elder wouldn't be able to escape death. Liang naturally didn't have the guts to admit this, nor did he dare to use force. That would be tantamount to admitting that he came to disturb the breakthrough. He had no choice but to explain, I didn't mean that. I didn't know Wang clan had someone who opened Zifu. I just wanted to visit Wang clan. Since I know Wang clan has someone who opened Zifu as a neighbor, how could I not lend a helping hand? I can also protect you. Please close the array formation and let me in. Wang Daoyuan replied with words. Wang clan appreciates Elder Liang's good intentions, but Wang clan does have some inconveniences. I hope Elder Liang won't blame us. Liang had been rebuffed before, so he didn't dare to use force. Just as he was in a dilemma, a sword light came from the south. As it got closer, he heard a voice. Wang clan has someone who opened Zifu. I came to protect you. The person who came was precisely Yang. When he arrived outside the Jade Spring Peak and saw that Liang was also here, he cupped his hands and said, What a coincidence, is Elder Liang also here to protect me? Seeing Yang arrive, Liang knew that there was no chance for him to cause trouble anymore. Smiling awkwardly, he said, This old man is indeed also here to stand guard. It's just that the Wang family is quite hostile towards this old man and is unwilling to allow this old man to enter. Yang said with a smile, Establishing the Violet Palace is a major matter. Only the cultivators of one's own family are allowed to guard the Dharma Protector. Moreover, the Wang family's Black Tortoise Water Warding Formation was also quite extraordinary. Even if there were thieves, it would be difficult for them to force their way in. The two of us can just stand guard outside the formation. I believe that the Wang clan will also owe Elder Liang a favor. Once Yang said these words, Liang was naturally unable to say anything else. In terms of cultivation, the two of them were on par, but Yang was 50 to 60 years younger. In terms of magical combat, Liang Liang was a wood attribute cultivator and was the worst at it. On the other hand, Yang Yong was a fire-type cultivator and was good at fighting. In terms of status, Liang Liang was only an elder without any duties. He did not have any actual authority in the Netherworld sect. On the other hand, Yang Yong was the guardian of Clear Glass Market Square, responsible for managing the various clans in the northern part of Clear Glass Prefecture. He was the Wang family's immediate superior. No matter how one looked at it, Liang Liang could not compare to Yang Yong. If Yang Yong could wait outside Jade Spring Peak's mountain protecting formation, Liang Liang was even less qualified to clamor about going in. He could only pray in his heart that the Wang family's person who opened the Zifu would fail. Wang Daoyuan also used the water's spiritual energy in the formation to condense words, saying, "Many thanks to the two elders for their kindness." Without external threats, time passed very quickly. 4 to 6 hours quickly passed, and the purple light around Wang Xian's Immortal's cave became more and more dazzling. Soon, a purple ball the size of a longan appeared out of thin air. The ball continuously absorbed the purple light, slowly growing larger. Only when it reached the size of a fist did it stop growing. At this moment, a blue spiritual energy appeared beside the purple ball, transforming into a 10-zhang long dragonfish, exactly the same as the Wang family's emblem. Yang Yong saw the dragonfish through the black tortoise water warding formation, saying, "I didn't expect to see a dragonfish again after 300 years. To be able to trigger the Zifu phenomenon, this person's talent is not bad." Wang Daoyuan had also read the ancestors' notes on establishing the Zifu, so he had some understanding of the Zifu phenomenon. The Zifu phenomenon was a phenomenon that appeared when the Zifu was established, other than the formation of the Zifu and the transformation of the soul into the divine soul. This Zifu phenomenon was relatively mysterious, but there were traces that could be followed. It was related to the cultivator's cultivation method, magic technique and obsession. The Zifu phenomenon did not appear when all cultivators established the Zifu. However, the phenomenon in the Violet Palace realm wasn't rare. About 20% of Zifu cultivators would have a phenomenon when they established the Zifu. The Zifu phenomenon was also related to the minor divine abilities of the Golden Core stage and even Yuanying. Wang Xian's Purple Palace had resulted in the appearance of the dragonfish. If he could comprehend a lesser sacred art in the future, it would definitely be related to the dragonfish. Moreover, cultivators who did not have a phenomenon when they established the Zifu would not be able to comprehend minor divine abilities or divine abilities in the future. The dragonfish swam around the purple sphere, and its body became smaller as it got closer to the sphere. In the end, it turned into a dragonfish pattern that was engraved on the purple sphere. A human-shaped mist floated out of the cave and gradually shrunk until it was 3 inches tall. At this moment, the human-shaped mist became very solid and one could clearly see its appearance. It was no different from Wang Xian. However, its body was still made of mist. Then the mist person walked towards the purple sphere. When it reached the purple sphere, the mist person wanted to enter, but there was no way out. The mist person sat cross-legged in front of the purple sphere with its eyes closed, as if it was comprehending something. This was the inner demon tribulation, and it was also the final obstacle to becoming a Zifu realm cultivator. After overcoming the inner demon tribulation, a door would open in the purple sphere. The mist person would enter the door, and the process of establishing the Zifu would be completed. Now all that was left was to nurture the soul, transform it into the divine soul and stabilize the realm. If one couldn't overcome the inner demon tribulation, their life would not be in danger and they would only become a half-step Zifu realm cultivator. Once the Zifu was formed, the soul would not be able to enter and transform into the divine soul. A half-step Zifu realm cultivator only needed to raise their mental state, and their soul would easily enter the Zifu. Thus, most half-step Zifu realm cultivators would be able to become true Zifu realm cultivators in a short period of time. It was almost impossible to find a half-step Zifu realm cultivator in the outside world. The mist person sat in front of the purple sphere for 15 minutes before suddenly opening its eyes, which flickered with a purple light. The light shone on the purple sphere and a door immediately appeared, allowing the mist person to enter. Then the purple sphere slowly descended and landed in between Wang Xian's eyebrows. The purple light outside completely disappeared and there was no movement at all. Yang Yong smiled. The Zifu realm has been formed. From now on the Wang clan is a Zifu realm clan. Half a day later the unique spiritual sense of a Zifu realm cultivator spread out. This was the sign that the soul had transformed into the divine soul. At this point Wang Xian had officially become a Zifu realm cultivator, and the next step was to stabilize his cultivation. A moment later the spiritual sense disappeared. At the same time, a 300-meter wide whirlpool of blue spiritual energy appeared in the air above Wang Xian's cave. His Zifu realm had been formed, and his soul had been nurtured into the divine soul, but his physical body was still at the peak of foundation establishment. The reason he was absorbing spiritual energy now was to raise his physical body's cultivation. The spiritual energy whirlpool lasted for 4 hours before gradually shrinking and disappearing. Then Wang Xian walked out of the cave and cupped his hands towards the sky. Many thanks to the 2 elders for protecting me. Please come in for a chat. Wang Daoyuan immediately deactivated the black tortoise water driving formation and walked out of the ancestral shrine to welcome the 2 elders. Yang Yang's face was filled with joy as he landed on Jade Spring Peak. As for Liang Liang, he coldly snorted and left. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.